Hey everyone, thanks for coming and hanging out with me on the 78th anniversary of D-Day. Today, I'm just gonna start off by talking about a few things on my mind in relation to D-Day itself, commemoration of it, things I've seen social media-wise, the situation the Juno Beach Centre is currently facing, and anything else anybody's watching would like me to talk about or has questions, as always, fire away, and I'm more than happy to answer them to the best of my abilities, or if they're opinions, whatever, I can. So fire away with those or thoughts on anything, and just let me know. So just to start off, by the nature of my own work, I work with a whole bunch of different organizations in contract capacities, articles here and there, things like that, other research work. So just saying right off the hop, this is just me talking. No one else is represented here. No other organization whatsoever, just me. These are my opinions on things, and not tied to anybody else. Just good old Brad Sanqua, PhD, all by himself. What should I start with? Start with the easy stuff. Good to always see lots of attention for the anniversary of D-Day or any major anniversary connected to military history in this way. Always like seeing it. Thanks for joining, Alex. It's greatly appreciated. From the JBC, Juno Beach Centre. I'm sure he's having a busy day. It's always good to see people remembering this, all of the things connected to it, family connections, learning all the different stories people have, all of that. It's always a positive that people are talking about it. Of course, with almost anything, particularly on social media, there's negatives attached to this, people using it for political ends, misunderstanding situations. One in particular, speaking for veterans, that I don't like the most because it makes zero sense. You have all manner of veterans that fought as part of this campaign in Normandy, in the armies, all of them throughout the Second World War and conflict in general. So to say one opinion fits everyone is just not accurate. The Allied armies had all kinds of people from all kinds of gambits, all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of different stuff. So that's one that really kind of bugs me. People using it for their own ends, whatever that may be. Nastier things, which I, again, am not a fan of and don't like seeing, especially to personally attack people. That's not cool. So I've seen that a lot today because I did some digging just real quick, because I always like to do on anniversaries like this, see what people are thinking and how they express their opinions connected to military history events, particularly today, obviously, D-Day, Battle of Normandy, all that stuff. I've seen some nasty stuff. I'm not going to be sharing any of that because I didn't want to save it all and don't want to think about the negatives too much. But that is one thing I did want to mention. Hey, Scott, thanks for joining us. Is that that's one of the nastier things I've seen. And I think that's anything anyone can get behind is don't do that. Don't be nasty. It's just easier to be nicer to people than it is to be mean. So with that said, some of the other, I guess, not necessarily lighted harder, but not as nasty, is just misrepresentation of a lot of things. I mean, that's standard, especially now with social media and things like YouTube as of now. Sorry, I keep checking. I have Twitter and stuff open just in case anyone wants to get in touch with me if they want to talk about something via that. Just gonna keep checking that periodically. So if I dart over, I start darting over. That's why. As I'm sure you can imagine, my social media has been quite busy today. Obviously. Anyway, so sorry, misrepresentations of photos. One in particular that always gets used. I mean, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but I saw it being used quite a bit in some of that nastiness I was talking about. There's a photo from Operation Torch of U.S. Their army. I'm not sure what unit they're in, but it's definitely the Torch landings. They're in a landing craft assault coming on one of the beaches. I don't remember the exact details. So that's one I see used a lot, and they're all quite young looking, as a lot of them were back then, as a lot of them were young. So that gets used again for ends, saying, they're so young and all of this, which is accurate for a lot of them, but not for everybody, right? Not everyone was 19, 18, whatever. There's people my age landing on the beach, early 30s or older, serving in the Navy, even much older, Air Force, all across, Merchant Marine, all ages. That's just another thing that kind of bugs me a little bit. Is yeah, there's a lot of young people, but not everyone's, fresh-faced kid, 18 years old, never been off the farm or the family home or anything like that. That's just not the case. That's just not how it was, right? You have, like I already said, broad spectrum of backgrounds and people, ages too, all that stuff. And that's one that always comes with that. Again, more things like media representations of the landings, which I see a lot, and it bugs me. Not like media, like movies. Longest Day, obviously, I'm sure you've seen that today, is the upside down, helmet on the beach. That comes from the Longest Day movie. I think it's the poster and used in all kinds of media related to that. That gets used a lot. Saving Private Ryan, obviously. Ian is used a lot. And Keith, yeah, thanks. Oh, actually, yeah, one second. Thanks for saying that, Keith. That means a lot, especially today. Maybe I could talk about that in a second. So if I forget, I will come back. But that's nice to hear. I try my best. I feel like sometimes I'm holding back the ocean with a broom, but I do my best. Anyway, I'll come back to Keith in a second after I finish what I'm talking about here. Saving Private Ryan's used a lot, obviously, in color. People like that. The scene from the bunker that's also non-existent at that part of Omaha in that sort of orientation. That shot is used all the time. And I don't know why. The only reason I say this is because there's just such an abundance of photographs and even film and all kinds of stuff connected to the actual landings. There's tons, and it's not all just Frank Capra stuff, right? There's more. Robert Capra, not Frank Capra. Capra. I'm getting the director and the photographer mixed up. There's more than just those, whatever 11 photos it is, and then there's the stills don't need to be used. We have all kinds of stuff. Canada, especially, I've seen that a little bit. People talking about Canada, Juno Beach, and using American stills or American clips. We don't need to do that. We have lots. I mean, I've accessed, put links to a lot of them. In the past, I had to delete a whole bunch of them because a whole bunch of YouTube things. Maybe I'll talk about that later. But there's just so much, and it's so easily accessible. I don't know why. Or check stills. Yeah. You're right, Alex. Unfortunately, well, did I have that book or did I put it on the shelf? Yeah, the one that's supposedly always DApp or D-Day. It's the checks training, I think, somewhere in the shelves, maybe. I can't remember exactly, but that one's used all the time and said it's D-Day or DApp or whatever landing they want it to be, and it's just not. So I don't know. People think that this is nitpicking and history, looking down on people. I just don't think that's the case because these things are easy to find. They're all public domain. They're easy to use. You literally just click, right? Copy and paste, and you're done. There's lots of stuff. You could just plug that in. And that's all you need to do. You don't need to reuse other old images, right? I'm just trying to always push the Canadian a little bit because we get, often forgotten. Longest Day, I talk about that a lot, but we're literally, Canadians are not in that at all. I mean, I think it was brought up the other day, there's RCAF pilot in one part, but that's nothing, right? For what was I saying? Sorry, there's RCAF pilot in the movie, but I mean, there's a whole beach, a whole sector that's a Canadian assault division. I just don't think that this is feasible to exclude a whole beach. So I don't really. Oh yeah, sorry. Alex says train. That photo I was talking about training near Dunkirk, late 44. Oh, that's right, because they were doing the siege until the end of the war. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, technically the first Canadian Army too. So there's another Canadian connection. Anyway, yeah. So I think that's something. I know I'm like preaching to the choir here, but I think it's something we can always keep in mind and call out, and not necessarily mean ways. You don't have to be mean about it. I did it today, and just a few other things. I'm just like, that's just not the case. This is the case. The story sometimes is actually even better than the fictional story that people have come up with all kinds of stories that's connected to D-Day. So I think that's an easy one moving forward. I think that's just something I wanted to bring to mind is it's not necessary. I mean, I can't remember. I've been hearing a lot about this. Like, doing it correctly is just as easy as doing it wrong in a lot of cases. I brought this up on the tweet thread I did on Saturday night when I was just bored and watched Operation Mincemeat. There's just things in there that were just as easy to get right as they were to get wrong. It would have taken literally the same amount of time just to do it right, and they didn't. It's odd. It's mind-boggling to me. Just it takes 2 seconds of Google search. I mean, there's how many people connected to a movie, and one person can't look this up and make a slight additional thing on set. It's not that difficult to get like something like a salute right. It's not that hard. I think these things are important, and I think you guys would probably agree. And Ian makes a really good point here that the more wrong film clips that are used, more confusion and doubt in the future. I completely agree. People think that things from stills are real, all that stuff. It causes more confusion, especially with newer generations. They don't know what's what, and especially with the prevalence of social media. And that's, again, I say again, over and over again, I think that's the way that most people are going to consume their history in the future, through social media, YouTube, all those different platforms. I think that's going to become even more and more of a problem. The truth will be lost and replaced by this mythologized version of everything. So I think that's problematic, and it's good for us to kind of pick up on these things and try to do it properly. Again, I think it's just as easy because you can easily find this stuff. It's easily shared. I share it all the time. It's not hard to find. Anyway, yeah, so a few more points there about The Longest Day, which I had forgotten. I knew this. I forgot. I knew Paul Anka was in the movie, but he wrote the song too, which is true. I mean, he's had a long career, right? He's been around for a long, long time. Started off as, as a teen heartthrob kind of singer, and still going today. And from Ottawa, where I live, where there's a street named after him, obviously. So that's cool. I forgot about the theme song part. I knew that, but I just forgot. I tend to forget a lot about that movie because it's not my favorite. Let's say I've watched it a couple times, and it's not easy. Actually, Keith, if that's all right with you, if you want to stick around, hopefully we'll see how long this goes, see how people want me to go. But maybe I'll come back towards yours, maybe when I'm wrapping up, because there's a few things I want to say about what I'm doing personally and where things might be going for me. Nothing with too much details because nothing's set in stone, but kind of what the future might look for what I'm trying to do. And that's connected to what you're talking about. So yeah. Yeah, and the berets is always a big one. Yeah, there's all kinds of uniform things. I mean, that's not my specialty or something I notice all that much, but it's just sometimes the little things like these that are easy to get right or use. Sorry, I have a message here. Okay. That just take as much amount of time or real quick. There's really no excuse nowadays, right? You can search these things. You can see the film of how these people carry themselves, what they did, all that stuff, whether it's formal ceremonies and dress uniforms, all that kind of stuff. The stuff is really easy to find. I mean, you put in D-Day in YouTube and I don't know how much comes up, millions, probably into Google, millions of hits. Stuff's easy to find, not difficult at all. So I think it's just something that bugs me, obviously, as a historian. So, yeah, so there's that. What else would I want to talk about in regards to that? Nothing else. Good to see some support from new accounts and stuff like that online as well, and for mine too. A good question, Ian. I hope somebody watching now might know. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know for sure, and I don't want to say 100% definitively. I don't think there is. I search that website daily, pretty much, for this, social media, my own projects, research I'm doing for people, all kinds of things. I see stuff. I go looking for stuff sometimes. I don't see anything. The video offerings are not readily available, even if you want to use them. You can't get to them. There's auto recordings, but a lot of them are private donations that are held back for whatever reason. You can't get to them. There's hardly any digitization from Library and Archives Canada. I don't want to get into why that is. They have all kinds of troubles over there. Yeah, and Great Dominion is also correct. CBC has a lot, but you can't do anything with it. You can just paste their links and that's it. They won't release the copyrights. You can't do anything with it without their permission, which I don't think is right, especially as it's government funded and over what now, 78 years old. I think it should be released, but that's me. And they cause all kinds of problems when you're trying to use it. So that's something I've dealt with, and kind of stalled some projects of mine that I wanted to do for the channel specifically, because I couldn't find things that I thought were should be available and weren't, particularly from Canadians, right? And Ian brings up, sorry, not Ian, Scott, it brings up the Internet Archive, which I do use, but there's hardly any Canadian stuff on there. In this Canada specifically, like Ian mentioned or asked about. There's stuff, lots of stuff, American stuff, good stuff. I've used some of it because I can't find anything Canadian. So I use what I can find. A lot of American archives, some have Canadian content, kind of, but there's not a whole lot, unfortunately. Sorry, I just got a message. That's nice. From an account I don't know. Must be new. Sorry. Yeah, Internet Archive's good. Lots of stuff. I've listened to some of the great stuff. Everything from Pearl Harbor. There's the audio recording from during the attack. All kinds of things. War correspondence, recording in the battlefields. It's a great resource, and there's tons of stuff. It's just the Canadian stuff is quite limited, which is unfortunate. But yeah, as far as I know, Ian, I don't know. I don't want to say 100% because as anyone who's used the Library and Archives Canada website, it's not great. The database is kind of terrible. You can literally have all the information you need to find, say, a specific file, plug it into what the search says to plug in, like say it's item number, and you have the item number of the exact thing you need because you've seen it before or someone's recommended it, and it won't return it. It'll return nothing, or it'll return 1,000 different things. And I'm not even exaggerating. Sometimes there'll be like 50 pages with like 30 results on each, and it's just like, why? But anyway, so I don't only know that because of access to archives is an issue. But yeah. Yes, you're right, Scott. There is the CBC stuff from Italy, but there's Canadian sources with that same thing. There's a bit of like voiceover that was added after, but you can easily get that Ortona stuff from Canadian sources, no problem. But that's one of the few, and that's why it was one of the first videos I did, because it was all easily accessible. Yeah, so bit of an aside here. What are you looking for, cop survey? Let me know. It's not hard. There's lots, depending on what you want. You might have to go dig in a few different places, but not always Canadian databases either. But there's a lot of good stuff out there. A lot of aerial photos for those of you who saw with Kevin Lambie yesterday afternoon. Sorry, getting the days mixed up here. It's been a lot going on the last 3 days. Yesterday afternoon, my time, he had all kinds of great aerial shots of the spots where the Regina Rifles landed in Corsole and where now the Juno Beach Centre is today. Hey, Philip, thanks for joining us. Yeah, there's lots. So let me know either here or if you want to catch up on Twitter or wherever, just reach out and let me know what you're looking for. I could probably help you out. That's a good question, Amanda. And thanks for joining us. Amanda, who was on the channel last year around this time, talking about her great uncle, which I've linked a couple of times on Twitter, and was a really good talk. And the book was amazing. I really, really enjoyed reading that book by Amanda. If you haven't read it, I can link around to that stuff later. No, I haven't looked extensively in a while. I did look for as anything as I could find in terms of like a roster or a regiment list for anybody, for all the units, and I was very unsuccessful. I've been through all kinds of war diaries, not just the diary part, but the appendices, which are such a mishmash, and you don't know what you're going to get. They're all sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments. We're talking about, the war diaries. They're all different, all done differently depending on the unit, what they put in there. Some are very sparse, some are like novels. So it's hard to bring all that together. I mean, you think with the digital age here roaring, it would be done and easily accessible, but it's not. It's one of those things that why I still think we're kind of at the beginning. of the digital age for military history and what's missing. Like these things should be easily accessible by now, and they're just not, which is odd. I mean, and I'm surprised someone hasn't tried to put something together if it doesn't even exist. I mean, there's lots of ways you could go about doing this stuff, but as I know personally, time and money, and I stress the money part, is a big issue because people still need to eat and pay the bills, right? They can't just sit around all day doing things that no one's going to pay for. And that's a major problem that maybe I'll talk about later. Sorry. Right. Radio correspondents, talking to Scott here more about the sources again, audio files. There is lots of them. Yeah. I just have some trouble finding them sometimes. So if you have them or know where to easily find them, Scott, that would be great. I just don't know too many off the top of my head. Because I went looking for video. This, it was a while ago because I got busy, as I always am. But I found lots of audio, but no, sorry, video, but not just pure audio. I went a little bit and then had to move on to the next thing I had to get finished. Yeah, interesting point. Modern technology. Some of them, yeah, not modern day conveniences. So yeah, a lot of them just didn't talk about it as well. That's part of this. Some did, a lot of them did not. But yeah. Coming back to the photos, yeah, there's different ones. U.S. National Archive has a lot of them because a lot of those recon teams were recce teams. Gonna get in trouble with the Canadians again. Well, they're Americans, so they're recon. Those recon teams are on the National Archive, U.S. National Archive website. That's where I found them for the First Is Ours video I did a year ago now. Yeah, there's quite a bit of those. They're awesome. It's just they're not well organized. You got to kind of do the work. You got to use whatever landmarks you can find and link them together. You got to kind of do it yourself. I tried to do it with that video, like literally moving down the beach to see where the First Is Ours may have come ashore. Kevin showed me some great stuff last night, which showed everybody that great stuff that shows all of that. So it's great. But that site has them. It's just they're not the best organized. And then also the Laurie, they've changed their name now. They're not just purely military history anymore. Their archive has those as well. I'm not sure how much is digitized though. What were they used to be called? Laurie Center for Disarmament and Military Studies, I think. Center of War now. I don't know. They changed the name. I didn't go to the conference, so I don't know the new name. I forget the new United States, Canada, I think. Anyway, you can probably just plug in Laurier University Military History Archive and it should come up. I don't know how much of it's digitized for Juno Beach, but I know they have some because I found some on there too. But then I just went to the US. But there's always places to go poking around and looking, and that's one that doesn't get used as much as it should. Yeah, and sorry, moving on here. So thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. If you do find anything, or anyone else for that matter, anyone watching now or after, if you find anything cool that's Canadian, please reach out. All my socials are linked down below. You can get in touch with me through pretty much any of them. And then if it needs email, I can shoot you that later. Yeah, so that's cool. So thanks, Scott. Yeah, and kind of back to what Amanda was talking about with the list. I tried to do that myself for the relative I lost. He was obviously not alive. That part of my family, he was killed. I went through that war diary with a fine-tooth comb and checked adjacent ones, different files I thought might even have a connection. I couldn't find any like a list. It didn't exist. He wasn't even mentioned as a casualty. Because it was just so busy of a day, right? It wasn't recorded in that way, shape, or form. So that's a bit tricky. Doing those rosters is not easy. It takes a lot of work and a lot of digging. Yeah, and I don't know if we're ever going to have that, to be honest. But you never know. But also getting access to archives, Library and Archives Canada is not easy right now. And I think it's only going to get worse. And I can expand on that if people want. But anyway, Let's go in order here. Yeah, that's awesome, Alex. I'm excited to see it, the Holy Roller. I'm going back to my hometown, London, Ontario, at the end of the month. Yeah, end of June, and making time to go see that because I haven't seen it in years. Obviously, I don't live here. I don't live there anymore, and it's in a part of town that I just don't really go too much because I don't have a reason to. Usually, when I go back to the southwestern Ontario. Yeah, so I'm excited to go see that for sure. I mean, it was part of my childhood. It's was there always, Victoria Park. Ever since I can remember. I think it was put in just before I was born, so it was always there. And there's always festivals, and Victoria Park still is, which is awesome. But it was always there, and it's been gone for the last little while. So yeah, I'm excited for it to be back. It was getting vandalized quite frequently, unfortunately, at the last little while. It was getting redone. We'll see what's been done. I haven't been able to follow it, and the Holy Roller group that did it has been very active on social media, particularly Facebook, about the whole project. So you could probably check in on that as well. Fundraiser, which I participated in because it was beer, so that's always fun. So that was great. So hopefully they got some sort of security, some lights, I don't know, something, because people were literally breaking into it. And other than that, yeah, sorry, I'm just getting lots of messages. Yeah, so I'm excited to go see it. I'll give some video of that. I already have some video of it on the channel if you want to check out the old setup that was there. I think it's a similar setup, but it's just been redone, right? It's been cleaned up, and there was holes in it in the bottom that they've hopefully sealed up very well. They were doing work with Fanshawe College. I'm also alumni of that institution on that, so that's great to see that they were taking care of that. Yeah, so that's I'll provide some video. Maybe I can do a quick live stream from there. Yeah, so sorry, I saw where'd it go. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep these things organized in my. Oh, here we go. Which Canadian Sherman has the more impressive war record, Holy Roller or Bomb, the latter of the Sherbrooke Fusiliers? There's a leading question. I don't know. What do you find impressive, GD? I know Holy Roller was an HQ tank. Does that take away? It wasn't, first wave on Normandy. It was landed that day, but it wasn't a DD, right? So it didn't go in first, but it was there the whole time. So was Bomb though. So I don't know. I'm not going to come down on that one. I've never seen the Bomb in Sherbrooke. I haven't been to that part of Quebec in a very long time. What can I say? I'd love to take a big trip across Canada and see all the sites that I haven't seen in a very long time. But duration and nature of service. Well, they're both the same length of service, right? Beginning to end. I don't know. I don't really know what to say. Yeah, I don't know. I obviously I have my bias to the First Hussars as a London boy. So just Holy Roller, like I already said, it's been around since I can always remember. Always having that central place in Victoria Park in downtown London. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, opinions obviously, but and I don't know the service as well of the Sherbrooke Fusiliers individual, equipment as well as I do. For the First Hussars, obviously. Anyway, so yeah, so someone asked, does anyone have any links to the CBC broadcast of D-Day? I don't have them offhand. I know there's a few pages that CBC has put together over the years that you can go and find. They may have just done it for you, like in a blog, or they had like a history page. I'm not really sure what to call it. They had an archive of that link, I think. Yeah. So if anyone has those or knows where you can find them, let us know. Ian Card mentioning, yes, organization of archival record is so important, not a criticism as someone who has to do it, but an observation. Yeah, it's critically important and difficult to do. I'm not, going against any archivists or the staff of these places. I don't think the issue lies with them. Not at all. It lies with higher ups. And yeah, that's what I'll say. Yeah, this is a good question, Amanda. Sorry, just taking a bit of a sidestep here. I asked on Twitter yesterday, retweeted, I got nothing, if there's any ceremony at Benny where my relative is buried. And I was there in 2016 about a ceremony or anything. I didn't hear anything. I asked if it was going to be live streamed. I'm sure something was done because they seem quite, in that particularly, in Revere and Benny and those smaller towns, villages, whatever you want to call them, were very insistent on doing this and doing it well and having a good turnout. So I'm sure something was done. I just wasn't able to hear any details. And obviously I'm not there. So I'm in Ottawa. So it's hard to get those details from the smaller organizations, and I can only do so much in a day. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was a really well done ceremony. I liked it. I've talked about it in the past on different things and different feelings about what happens there and stuff with reenactors and all of that. Again, not to disparage anybody, but I was upset, I think, mostly because I was seeing my relative's grave for the first time. I was the second family member to ever see it. Don't come from a wealthy family on the French side, so I don't think anybody else had ever been there. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I would have liked to know, but no, I didn't know. Sorry. This I don't know. Sorry. I don't know. If anybody knows, please let us know, unless I missed it. I'm not sure, to be honest. Sorry. I wish I knew. Yeah. I don't know. Sorry, Alex. This is about tanks in Italy. We're going down a rabbit hole already. I don't know. That's a really good question. I have no idea. That's a cool question to think about, though. Yeah. Yeah, if anybody knows, that'd be great. Or we can look into that later, but I'm not too sure. I mean, Italy's your thing, Alex, not as much as mine. I mean, obviously I do Italy because I do all of it, but all those nitty-gritty details as well as I should. The technical stuff and the tanks and all of that, which what every unit has and all that fun stuff. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. Yeah, yes, and Scott, my other first is our buddy here, got a connection there. To the units, yes, I'm sorry, I'm the opposite. I prefer the tanks to the horses, but that's just me. Give me the Second World War version as opposed to the First World War version, but that is a personal preference based on entirely knowing Second World War growing up as a kid in London, Ontario, and like I keep bringing up, Holy Roller sitting in Victoria Park forever, at least in my memory. It moved around a little bit, which is kind of cool because I did dig on it when I did the video last year, and there was that's when the talk of the fundraising for the restoration, which is incomplete. So I did a lot of digging around there. For any of you who know London at all, it used to be on the east side of town, near what's it called? Technically, it's called Queen's Park, which I think is quite funny because for Canadians or Ontarians, that's the name for our provincial legislature. That little patch of grass basically at the back of Western Fair. That's where it sat. I think that's kind of cool. It moved downtown, and then in the early mid-'80s, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure the Holy Roller Association has that all on their website. In fact, I do know that's where I got it from, but I just don't remember the years per se. But it wasn't always in Victoria Park. It moved around. Victoria Park has had a long military history. Technically, I think it is still under some legislation could be used in wartime for camps. I mean, it's got cannons from Crimea. Maybe later as well from maybe South Africa. I don't know. I think it might just be Crimea. And then there's the South African Memorial is there. And then there's the cenotaph, obviously. And then there's a memorial from the Dutch government or from the Dutch people, or maybe both. about for the liberation of the Netherlands by the Cenotaph. And if I miss anybody knows, let me know, either now or after, if anyone is watching this after. Because I just haven't been to Victoria Park in years. Because I've always have limited time when I go back to my hometown and can only do so much. But I will get to Victoria Park at the end of the month. So that's awesome. Thanks for joining us, Angela. That's greatly appreciated. Did I miss anything? Well, okay. We'll go back to this real quick. I don't know the story of Bomb as well. I think you mentioned is like the most reliable tank of the war. I think it was in one of the squadrons, right, where Holy Roller was a command, an HQ section. I mean, not to say that the HQ sections weren't involved in combat, but maybe why it had a better chance of surviving to the end, because it was in the headquarters section. I don't know. Squadron, sorry. I don't know. I don't know, again, the sure books. Yeah. Oh, this is a tough one. Favorite memorial for Juno Beach. There are a lot, which is awesome. I think that's great. There are so many. Bold is pretty cool. Sorry, the DD from Versus Ours that got swamped and got pulled out, 70s, I believe, from the surf, put in the town square there, which is, well, part of the town near the beach, not the square, as we learned yesterday. There's another part. That's pretty cool, just because it's a piece of kit, right, that was to life, so to speak. But again, I think this might be seen as a bit of a cop-out, but I think it's fair, because I don't want to highlight one more than the other, because I believe they're all important, and it's great to see all the battalions and support all of that memorialized on the spot where all this happened. But I will say this from my own personal experience, my own family connection is to the memorial to the La Regiment de Chaudière, the Chauds. It's because the family connection, and as a person, again, part of my personal experience, half French Canadian kid growing up in Anglo-Southern Ontario. It's nice to see French Canadian memorialization, and that they're getting the same attention in the same sort of way that units did. Again, that's just my own personal experience growing up as a French Canadian kid with a French Canadian last name. I mean, I have as much English ancestry as I do French. But as a kid growing up there, when we were learning in school, I'm just going to get a little personal, but I think it's important, is when things like conscription would come up, and the French Canadian resistance to it, and everything. As being like the only one of the few French kids in the whole school, maybe in the whole part of town, we were seen as I was told, like, we're not real Canadians. That also comes up with Plains of Abraham for some reason, even though the French were there first, which is interesting. I know there's also the indigenous people, which makes no sense that you would ever say that, but also that the French Canadians didn't want to fight. Cowards trying to stay out of it. My great uncle who fought enlisted. He was not a conscript. He didn't go active after being conscripted. His record is a straight up, enlistment paper, enlistment form. There's nothing else there. He was from a tiny, tiny, tiny town, Gaspé Peninsula, which is still tiny, tiny, tiny. There was no good reason for him to leave other than him wanting to do this. He had a relatively large family, but he was one of the older ones. And was working, so him leaving may have caused some issues with the family. So it's nice to see that the French Canadians in France, because right, it's not an issue there with the whole English French thing that can go on in Canada still, to see that. So sorry, that was a bit of a diatribe, but yeah, so it's good to see that, and just like how Amanda has the connection to the Winnipeg rifle. That's my answer. And yeah, where was Alex's? Yes, bold is good, but not so bold. You are fair to say so. I mean, it's so cool to see. I'm not gonna pick a German gun because that's also what's there, right? You gotta go with the Canadian kit. Come on. I don't think that's crazy. It's a DD tank sitting in the middle of a town. That's awesome. I would love that if we had that here. That'd be so cool. Just, right outside your house, just DD tank, just chilling. That would be cool. Yeah, that Lancaster has been moved. Yeah. And replaced with, a Spit and Hurricane. Hey, Thomas, thanks for joining us. Yeah, that's a cool one, too. That's a cool memorial at Sword. Sorry, one second. Yeah, that's a cool one. There's some pretty cool ones in Sword, actually, besides that one and all the different things that have been preserved or they're trying to still preserve, particularly on Sword. Lots of cool ones at Omaha, obviously. I've posted pictures there that I took from there. The infamous dog green sector that was rather incorrectly and Saving Private Ryan, but that section is quite busy always, right? It's also quite a narrow part of the beach, so literally feels a little squishy, but they've got all kinds of things there, so that's cool. I like seeing Utah because it's different. Right, it doesn't sit in that mind's eye that I often talk about of how we think about things. Right, I'm sure a lot of people hear D-Day, their brain goes to that scene. That opening, whatever it is, 22 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. Just German machine guns mowing them down coming out of the landing craft, which was not the case everywhere, obviously. Also, Omaha wasn't the only place that was that bad. Juno parts of it were just as bad, if not worse, proportionally. Which is interesting and never gets brought up. Other than like people like Paul Wooditch does all the time. He talks about that, and that's awesome to hear Woody do that, and I really appreciate him for doing so. That the Canadians had just a rough go. It's just there's no Hollywood movie showing this. And yes, I know there's the film of Storming Juno. I forget. It was talked about last night in the live stream. Or sorry, yesterday afternoon. So... and Gold's cool too. I mean, they're all got their own parts. They're all different. They all have a different vibe, different units, different everything, different all of that. I think that's a good part of it. Yeah, and the coming back to Bold here from Alex. It's a great story of working together to remember that was there, where it was, and getting it out of there. Literally, it's just an amazing feat, out of anything. A swamp tank that. That's pretty awesome. And then it sits in there and has a central role. Like it's literally right there, right next to where we were talking about yesterday. I keep saying last night. Yesterday afternoon, talking about the casemate near the entrance to the Corswell Harbor. It's like walking like 2 steps. I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's right there. So that's cool. And that 50 millimeter gun, the German one, is there. That's been shut up, I'm assuming, and my conclusion is by a tank of the First Desires. But yeah, so that's a cool one. I mean, it's hard not to have that stand out. Literally, it's so big, and it's right there. It's a cool one. Oh, okay, cool. Well, that's cool. I've never been. Really to BC. Only been to the airport. But yeah, I would like to get out there someday, at some point, somehow. I don't know how, but I'll try to make that work because I'd love to go see all kinds of stuff out there, all different units. Go see the Sea Force because they've been a great supporter of mine. They have a great archive. They're a good unit. I think that is something I'd love to see, and all of that is great, and all kinds of places across the country, like I already said, I want to go see, but just right budget, I don't have the money to do it because I'm still trying to make my way in the world as a fairly newly minted PhD historian. So I'm trying to do my best with those things, but I can only do so much with a little bit of money. Now, this is a really good question from Scott. So do you think the change in the Canadian flag has led people outside of Canada not understanding Canadian role in World War II? No, I think it has nothing to do with it. I think just because they went from the red ensign to the maple leaf flag in '65, I don't think it has anything to do with it. It might be a symptom, or it's not probably not even the right word, a result of such changes. I think it has more to do just with the Canadian role being absorbed into the greater British war effort. Whether it's people doing it on purpose, which I know some people do. Still to this day, Canadians are still purposefully lumped in with Brits on purpose. Which I have a problem with, obviously, because I'm the one fighting literally every day to get the Canadian contributions recognized alongside everyone else's. So yeah, I don't think why, but I think it's whether through malice or ignorance that Canadians are just purposely written out. I can go on and on and on about all of this. But I don't think it has to do with the flag. I think it has everything to do with Canadians ourselves. Again, well, Amanda brought this up right here. Tim Cook's book. I think I got a liner in here somewhere. I'm always covered in books. Here's one about World War II, Fight for History. It's a good book, great book. If you haven't read it, you should. It explains so much about Canada's understanding of itself in the post-Second World War period, how the First World War kind of fits in there and what that means, and kind of moving forward and really up to almost to today, more or less around the opening of the Canadian War Museum in 2005. Yes, for the anniversary of VE Day. Yes, so there's that. Anyway, so no, I don't think it's necessarily because we lost that supposed imperial symbol, even though our country is still full of them. They are everywhere. It's impossible to miss them. The maple leaf has been used in Canada forever. I think the maple leaf's been associated with Canada and other people's minds. Again, I can't speak for others, particularly of past time periods, but it's been associated with Canada for quite some time. So I don't think switching from, the red ensign with the Union Jack and the Canadian crest, or crest, I don't know. I'm not good with these. I forget the word. Symbols and everything. I'm not good with the actual terms. I forget them. But shield, that's it. That's changed a bunch anyway. So I don't think that's really part to do with that. I think it has more to do with Canada being written out, Canada not fighting for its own place at the table, literally at the time, right? I think that plays a role. Mackenzie King, I've talked about this on length. He didn't want to do anything. He didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize his power as prime minister. And for the next election, it was always for the next election. He was always worried about keeping his seat. So him staying out of things was a calculated move on his part to not, upset Quebec, which was his power base. Because again, based on populations, and that's how our system works, with seats in the parliament, just like Britain. So he didn't want to do anything that would upset them. Getting Canada too involved in all these things might upset a certain part of the French-Canadian population. So he wasn't fighting for Canada at the table. And then Canadians, basically after the Second World War, a lot of them just wanted to forget it and move on, right? Their brothers or their parents, whatever, had fought in the trenches, that again mindset, and then they just went through it themselves. They just wanted to live their lives, not worry about war anymore. I think that plays a part into it. And also there's the how the memorialization of the Second World War in Canada is done, right? This is a bit broader, but after the First World War, Canada did more or less what Britain did. Memorials all over the bloody place. Every tiny little town had one. Towns come together, governments come together, put it together, pool money, build it, usually names of the dead. That's what happened. That's everybody did it. They're still around all over the place. Later on, the Second World War names are usually put on, Korea sometimes as well. But there's no Second World War ones done specifically differently in towns and things like that. I'm not talking on the big levels. I'm talking in towns, tiny towns, or ones that become bigger cities, things like arenas, which again, I think this was on one of the live streams the last couple of days. It's Canada. Sorry, back to hockey. The arenas everywhere had a memorial arena built in the late 40s, early 50s. Memorial to the Second World War dead. A lot of those arenas are now gone because they got burned down, or they built a new one and the old one just kind of sits there collecting dust, or in a dilapidated state. I know a few like that. Or there was libraries, things like that, again, that have been changed and renamed or torn down and a new one built. So there's that going on too. So that's part of this, I think, is there was this, want to have some sort of usefulness in memorialization. And now that we've moved away from that, because literally these markers are gone, these buildings are gone or changed or whatever, we lose that and we lose that connection. Yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question well enough, Scott, but and we've had some people chiming in, which is amazing. Yeah, Philip in Belgium. Most people have no idea the flag changed. They probably don't even think about it, which I think is great. Where is the balance? Okay. Sorry, just reading Alex's comment. Where is the balance between acknowledging our place in the larger British military and telling our own story? I have no idea. You can tell me. You're JBC. You tell me. I think it entirely depends what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. And in the time period, too. First World War, I think it's a little easier. Strike a balance, right? You have a Canadian Corps inside the BEF. They're their own corps, but they're another corps in the BEF. Right, and that's I'm sorry, Canada, but that's it. There was nothing special than Curry coming into command later on. But again, that was the best choice anyway at the time and worked out extremely well. But then second, really different yet again. You have the 1st Canadian Army for political reasons. Should the 1st Canadian Army have existed in that form? I don't say, but it's something Canada fought for. Wasn't very Canadian of an army, right? One Canadian Corps is in Italy for the most existence of 1st Canadian Army. They joined eventually right at the end. There's more non-Canadians in it than Canadians. How do you fit that in as a Canadian narrative? I like taking it and adopting other units when I'm trying to do this kind of stuff for social media because I think it's awesome to broaden the story. Right, Dunkirk came up with the Czechs, like the Czechoslovakian Brigade. That's under 1st Canadian Army Command. I'm like, part of 1st Canadian Army. I'm going to talk about them because they're under Canadian command, but also it's a cool story that I can extend my scope a little bit and push the bounds of Canadian military history and what that means. I love pushing the boundaries, trying to get more people interested in it in that way. And I think a lot of you appreciate that, trying to push things a little differently, look at things a little different ways. So coming back to Alex's question about the balance, again, I think it depends on when you're trying to do this and time period you're trying to write about or present on or what have you, and the circumstances, right? I think First World War is different than the Second, and then you've got the post-war period where the British connection is literally starting to be severed on purpose. And I have lots of thoughts on that, but maybe that's for some other time. But I don't know how to say that. I don't think there's an easy answer. It can be done, but it takes a lot of work. And there's good examples out there of how it can be done and really, really bad ones. And there's all kinds of stuff out there. I mean, I've talked at length about this kind of stuff with like the valor and the horror and how that all fits into this and our understanding of Canada's role in the war and, its place within the British military traditions and all of this. That's not new. I did that, the reaction video to the Hong Kong episode and talked about a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I think you might be right. Sorry, I'm just reading more comments here to get caught up here. Yeah, I think you're right, Chris, unfortunately. Those who don't know don't care. Yeah. But we can still try because you never know, right? How interests change, or right, like say people now with kids now the adults or the parents might not care, but the kids might start to care. Yeah, I mean, yes. I don't know. I think it's still worth trying to do, and I think you would probably agree with me. But it's not easy. But it can be done in certain ways. I'm still trying to figure out what those ways are. I think this whole digital stuff is still fairly untested waters for connections to Canadian history in a lot of different ways. So maybe things will change in the next 10 years. I have no idea. I could not tell you. Keith, interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think you're wrong in saying that in any way, shape, or form, and I don't think you're going to offend anybody. Right? Monty's name just pisses people off to begin. So, yeah, yeah, he did a lot. I don't want to go on about him again. He gets enough attention. But the new book that I reviewed from John English, about Monty and his impact on the Canadian Army in the post-war period or Second World War and the post-war period. I didn't really buy the thesis because he didn't really argue with the thesis that was the case. He more argued that it was Monty's men and not the reenactment group that ran the Canadian Army, like Simmons and all of that. He even claims Crear was one of them, even though he spends the entire last 3/4 of the book ripping on Crear. Just rips on him nonstop. Everything Crear does is, the devil incarnate, and Monty's sent from heaven to save the British Empire, more or less. So I just think that clouds everything. Monty does things in the post-war period, Hong Kong, telling people like folks to not talk about it anymore. Agreed, like, oh, we'll do this, then you shut up about it. So he's really literally trying to suppress Canadian stories and telling Canadians to do the same. So I don't know. Yeah. Sorry. These are fun. Heraldry, that was the word I could not remember. So thanks for that. Yes, you are correct. Most of them do in some shape or form. No, I'm just trying to do it in my head. Yeah, most do. Some outright, like Ontario, Manitoba, have it. BC has a version of it. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's still there, but those come later, right? Those are not done at the First World War stage. Those are all after the Second World War, because Quebec is the first province to have its own flag. Everyone was using Union Jack, and Quebec comes up with the cross and the fleur-de-lis design, and every other province is like, let's make our own. So I think it's a little different. I don't think it's necessarily because, hey, we love Britain always and everything, but hey, this is a good choice, and we're trying to spite Quebec. They did it first. Now we have to do it. And what way is it better to do that than to throw Union Jack on it? That's not based on any sort of studying, but of any of these exact issues, but my understanding of how a lot of people thought back then, based on how they wrote about this stuff. Yeah. Another question from Ian. Yes, Liberty and Antwerp are historic and should be highlighted. Scope for an episode. Yeah, I did the show with Mark Zilke on that, where he come on, talked about it. It was great. It was one of the most popular live streams I've ever done. Still is very popular. Still gets lots of hits now, which is great. But yeah, I'd love to do more. I had some smaller things I had up that I had to take down for all kinds of reasons. Excuse me. But yeah, more could be done. I'd like to dig in it a little bit more, maybe do something in the fall with it. I don't know how that's going to work with timing and everything. But I agree. It should be better known. And it should be more focused on, because we talk about Normandy a lot, obviously. I'm doing it myself. I'm part of it. But things like Antwerp are huge, and they don't get any sort of recognition in that same way. I mean, we got that movie, which was okay. It was okay. Canadians in it. I'll take it. But because it brings up Antwerp right at the end about that. So it's something that I think deserves more. What an episode for my channel would look like, I don't know. So if you have ideas, let me know. Anybody, now or after, fire away, please do. But yeah, it's definitely one of the more important things that the Canadian Army especially does in the Second World War and in Europe. So I think it's definitely worth it more highlighting. Yes, and the 7,000 to 8,000 Brits on Juno. Yes, I do think they get. Mentioned fairly well. I don't think they're written out. Sometimes they are, but I think that it's known that they're there. Right? It's not like Canadians being left out of an entire movie. Bad, right? Sorry, Britain. I just don't think you guys sometimes complain. Sometimes I've seen Brits complaining about Canada getting attention on things, and I go, that's literally not the case. Sorry, just going back to the red ensign here. Brought up the red ensign is used to represent Canada, a number of history books and other media. Yes, usually from the time period, but sometimes they use the maple leaf. Sorry, that's me. I learned about the earlier flag because it was painted in the Windsor Tunnel. Yeah, because it was still in use when they finished the tunnel, which the tunnel kind of creeps me out still. Haven't been in years, but it's kind of creepy. It's very small. To Detroit, sorry, the tunnel between Windsor and Detroit under the river. Yes, because that was the flag at the time. I think there's a, on the plaque on the Ambassador Bridge, I think is also the red ensign. It's not like you can get out and get up there and check. Well, I mean, you could. You might get tased, but you can drive by it. Usually you're stuck behind, you're stuck at customs anyway. So you can usually get a good look at it. Okay, where are we? Yes, you're right, Alex. Going back to the earlier topic about newer people and understanding the war and what this is all going to look like. Yeah, they're completely removed from family members, right? Because just as again, we use our personal example to understand things, but my grandfather was born in the early 20s, mid 20s, sorry. He's been passed away for, 12 years now, 11 years. And he enlisted in, March 45. Yeah. So, I mean, that generation is unfortunately mostly gone. And like if I have children, they're not going to know my grandfather, right? So it's just that's going to make the challenge much more difficult. So yeah, I think you're right, Alex. But I think there's ways to do it. I have some ideas on what that can mean. But again, I'm a one-man shop with very little resources, so can only do so much. But I do have a lot of ideas on what that may look like and what could be done. But again, I just need someone who has money to listen to me. Ian, is Canada in World War I and II covered significantly in your school's curriculum? No, it is not. Again, I am now getting old, but when I was in school, not really. World War I talked about, we got Vimy Ridge, conscription, and John McCrae. Yeah, that's it. World War II, we did do Normandy. I remember that because we had vets still coming in at the time when I was in like grades 5 or 6. So 11, 12 years old. There were still lots of vets around, so they'd come in and talk, usually Remembrance Day, from all kinds of, I remember every year was multiple vets, and then it would get less and less. But not really. Second World War is not talked about as much. Normandy's covered a little bit. Japanese Canadian internment is covered. A little bit of the Holocaust was covered, and Canada's kind of mistakes around that with things like the St. Louis boat and everything. I remember learning about that. But everything else, not really. Like Italy, all that stuff, no idea. Was not taught. Okay, Thomas. What are your thoughts? I've never read it. I'd like to. I just haven't had reason, especially lately, to dig into the 4th Division, which I would love to do. I'd love to sit and read this book. I don't know. Hopefully the library nearby has it when I get a chance. But again, I'm just so busy and I have so many other things I got to do. I just haven't had a chance. So I don't really have any thoughts on, Caravaggio's thesis on it. I haven't read it, so I don't want to speak to something I don't know as well as I'd like. Sorry, everything got moved on me. Yes, our schools are managed on the provincial level, so they all set their own curriculum and how they want to go about doing it. There's no federal involvement really in that, and that goes back to Canadian Confederation and how these things were organized. That's just that. If you want to learn, okay, Amanda's question, good one. Liberation of the Netherlands, best books to read. This might be not the answer you're expecting, but the official history, I think, is always a good place to start. It's got some problems, obviously, but I like using it, digging into it, and leading to ideas on where to go next and to dig more. I think that's a good one. But the big overall arching works by like Kopp and stuff like that are a good place to go to learn about the Netherlands. There's more books specifically. I just don't remember off the top of my head, but they're not easy to get. With like veterans accounts and things like that. I did a bunch of digging on this year. I don't remember the names. I have them written down. And if you want to reach out later, it might be but they might not be easy to find is unfortunate part of this. Yeah, that's a good point too. So yeah, Alex, thanks for watching. And Amanda, who's now gone, just answered a question. Yes, the tiny human. Yeah, they usually need food, don't they? Sorry, Keith. Yes, we in Canada may feel under-recognized. Imagine how the Czechs and Poles feel, or Kiwis, South Africans, and East Indians within the empire. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, certain nations have events that are remembered all over the place. We don't really have that either. Or if we do, people get mad about it. I'm mostly thinking on the First World War context, with, Vimy and overshadowing Battle of Arras in 1917, spring 1917. People are like, it's all Vimy. And I'm like, yeah, but sorry, I'm not going to get upset for Canadians getting talked about when Britain's talked about all the time, when we get nothing anywhere else because we just don't have the money or the interest is the same, or the population, right? Our population is still very small in comparison. So. Sorry, everything keeps bouncing around on me here. I think I know. Yeah, I talked about this. I did a live stream on the Fascination with Defeat if anybody wants to check that out. We love to dig up and inspect the routes of failure. Dunkirk, Market Garden, Hong Kong, Pearl Harbor, all kinds of them. It's not even just Britain, it's every country. I think I would like to argue. Then celebrate successes. Yeah, the Great Swan, the left, far left flank, and Antwerp, things like that. Yeah, it doesn't make as good copy. Like I was talking to Stephen Wright, who wrote a book on Varsity, Operation Varsity, right? The airborne drop that supported plunder across the Rhine. It's never talked about, right? Market Garden until we're blue in the face, but you have Varsity, a huge airborne drop that I think is pretty cool. It's got all that technical stuff people love, right? And it's the lessons learned. And I asked him, do you think its own success, the success of Varsity, is why it's not talked about as much? And he said, yeah, because it went well. They hit their drop zones. They did it well. They held their positions. The army, the land forces that had come across the river, met up with them and they hit their objectives on the first day. That's a cool story to me on how they learned and did it, but a lot of people don't like it because it doesn't have that intrigue, that failure, that redemption that comes later, because it is the redemption. It's a success that's boring, I guess. I don't see it that way, but some people do, and I know they do because I've been looking at this for a long time. Yeah, this is that was one of the ideas. That's a good point to make. People are getting more and more into family history research, which is very true. Lots of people in genealogy nowadays, especially because it comes easier and easier, right? Which is awesome. I think it will help because people will see they have these connections, particularly say if they have a parent or grandparent who doesn't discuss this or doesn't really know anything about it, and then they'll want to dig more. People are naturally curious, I think, and like to learn about these things. So I think that's a good way to put it. Framing it within your own personal experience is a great way to do it. Getting people to be interested because not selfish reasons, not the right word, but things that they have connections to it, I think is the best way forward. And I think that's going to change on what that looks like. But that's kind of my thoughts on that. Sorry, when I scroll down, things move all over the place on me. Yeah, maintain the connection. Yeah, you're right, Pat. Yeah, I'd like to get in that book and get more into the fourth, but again, I can only do so much in a day, and got to pay the bills, right? So, got to do other things to make that happen. Oh yeah, Terrible Victory is really good, and even Terrible Victory, yes, but and Forgotten Victory too is by Mark Zilke's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, everyone has a different experience. Sorry, I just read Steve's comments here. Just give me a second. Everyone has different experiences, right, based on where they went to school and where and when, with the curriculums, right? Different provinces, like I already mentioned, have different ones. So it always is going to vary, right? In your own personal interest, if you're given any freedom to do topics that you enjoy, like I had those opportunities when I was in high school as well to, pursue. There was one of those assignments, pick what you want to do. And I did mostly, that's what I mostly did, surprise, surprise. But yeah, same sort of thing. Sorry if I missed anything. Sorry, I'm getting messages all over the place. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry, I just got some people messaging me. Yeah, I think this is a good point too. I don't know if I put this up, but and there are still some that are wanting to do this right when things are back and open up again. Is take high school students to the battlefields. Usually for Canadians, it's both First and Second World War because they're so close together geographically. So it makes sense to do it all in one blow. But yeah, those are the people I think that are going to help maintain the connection. So one of the thoughts I had, I guess, is a bit of an aside, but is using the knowledge that's created in more academic settings or with projects, what have you, and integrating those better into high schools. Like things like Project 44, which if you don't know, those are amazing. It's an amazing project with the mapping of all the units and everything. And they've got some really cool stuff coming. I work with them on contract basis, so I know some cool stuff's coming and what they're trying to do. So like things like that, I think are the way forward here. Integrating different parts, different things that appeal to people, and particularly younger people, are the way forward. Some people aren't going to like that because it goes against the norm, but I think that's what we have to do. Honestly, I think that's what it's going to take to get the newer generations interested. You can't expect them to come to the old ways. You have to go to them. And I know a lot of people who are doing things based on that thinking, and I think that's the way to do it. You have to make a connection, how they're going to understand it, and how they're going to want to make a connection. You can't just be like, read this book, this is important. Like, that doesn't work, right? You have to, you got to lead the horse to the water. You can't shove their face in the pond to make them drink, right? You gotta, work with it a little bit. And I think that's what we need to do. We have to take all this different work that's being done different ways and integrate it better. And even into the universities, I would argue, but that could probably open up a whole other can of worms. Because I think, and I haven't said this out loud many times, I just think the old ways are dying and are killing the discipline. History is in the universities is just, has interest, but it's not being handled well. It's not being, sorry, I'm going on another side here, but it's not going great. Yeah. So I think things have to change. Otherwise they'll just disappear. And that's the opposite of what I think any of us watching want, right? We don't want these things to just disappear. Excuse me. Yeah, oh, this is interesting from Thomas. High school teachers Austrian taught us nothing about Canada's involvement. Oh, that's not good. That's bad. When you learn about the Austrian involvement, with the guy who started it all. Yes, I know I'm simplifying. Don't jump at me. Sorry, I just want to see if I missed anything. Wow. Sorry, just reading about Steve's comment here. Family history is what led to investigate military history. When I was a kid, I was told Grandpa was in the war. I wasn't told that he was away for over 7 years. Yeah, that's left out a lot of the time. What that means, you hear, oh, they were in the war. Okay, what does that mean? Some people don't care, move on. Others, ignites the spark, and they want to find out as much as they can, and then they're introduced to the world of military history, and things kind of go off from there. That's what I think is a cool way of going about doing this stuff, because there's just so much out there and so many connections to the war. It's great to hear that's what it set it off for you. Mine's kind of similar, I suppose, because my grandfather, like I already mentioned, enlisted very late in 45, but he was a big history buff himself. So that's kind of think how I got it. I just always remember being interested in history anyway. It's just something I've always been interested in. So it just it took me a long way to get to where I am, but and took a kind of American history detour. But now here I am. So, and I'm glad to be where I'm doing what I'm doing. It's great to get to where the country I'm from and have so many connections to the military history of this country. And to be doing this and bringing it to people is what I enjoy a lot. I really do enjoy doing this, talking to everybody about these kinds of things, running social media, bringing stories to light, doing videos, chats, all that stuff. I really, really enjoy it. Anyway, but that's just my aside there. Yeah, and a lot of people also, that's why they came to Canada, right? Or that's how they became interested in Canadian stuff. Like I've just talked to many people who don't live in Canada, right? Or don't really have Canadian relatives or what have you, but they're like, oh, I'm interested because of Canadians, because, they liberated the village, or, they saved, so, such and such. Things like that. It's always great to hear that too, that Canada has that reputation with so many people. And it's great to see. Are there any organizations that take veterans back to the battlefield? Yes. I don't know. I can't speak too much about lately, particularly with COVID. We have a Legion, right? We have the Canadian Legion. They were huge. They're shrinking, obviously, because those numbers are dwindling of the Second World War veterans, which were their last big group. There are a lot of, I know, but this was decades ago. There's a lot of regimental associations and just veterans groups that were organized in and of themselves and would do tours. Because I looked at a lot of that for Hong Kong, right, with the Winnipeg Grenadiers and the Royal Rifles of Canada, 2 regiments that are now gone, put on the supplemental list, as it's called in Canada. So there's that. I don't know if there's like ones that, I'm sure there is. I don't know off the top of my head their names or anything like that will like subsidize travel and that. I'm sure there is. I just don't know any big ones. I'm sure a lot of stuff is done through the Legion still. If there is, there's just such a dwindling number of veterans. It's hard to find them in this country still. There's just not that many left, unfortunately. And it only gets worse every day, right? We lose a lot every day. And then eventually there'll be none, which is quite sad. But yeah, I know some veterans and they're still around, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know of any organizations for sure, like that's their main purpose, but there are groups that do things with vets. The Legion, obviously, again, is the biggest in the country. And there's other smaller ones as well that do stuff with veterans and things like that. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know if I missed any other questions. Sorry, Twitter's still going crazy on me. Yeah, if any other questions, please go ahead. I've pretty much set aside the whole day for this kind of D-Day stuff. So I don't need to run, but if people want to leave, by all means. But if you have questions, fire away, or anything you want to talk about, ask away. If not, I'll take this opportunity then to talk about the one thing I did mention, the Juno Beach Centre. So, and if you have questions, do put them in and I'll get to them when I finish. I just want to finish this. So the Juno Beach Centre, right? I don't know if everyone watching is aware of the controversy going around that right now. There's a plan to put some condominiums on a patch of land that's not owned by the center, but right next to it. And I don't know French law. I don't barely know Canadian law, but there's some law that there's right-of-way access on roads for construction, as far as I understand it. And they're petitioning to get access to such road, the only road to the parking lot of the Juno Beach Centre, for access for their construction vehicles. So there'll be people literally mixing with these construction vehicles, which is not fun and not safe. And it might affect the long-term impact of the center. Some people think this is being blown out of proportion. That's not a big deal. The center will be fine. It's just a little bit of condo construction on a plot of land that really has no historical significance. Like it didn't have any bunkers or anything like that, that kind of stuff. And then there's the whole other side, which thinks this is the end of the JBC. Again, I don't know. I don't work for them. I've done some writing, as some of you know, for them, but I don't work for them. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. No idea. So it just, there's two spectrums here of like, it's fine, it's all good. And then there's the, panic button. I'm going to be candid here. I know Alex left, but I used to think that the Juno Beach Center's purpose was a bit strange. And that's bringing the Canadian story to a bunch of Europeans. It's not. I was like, okay, that's odd, because they mentioned, it's commemoration, right? I get it now. I get what's going on there. I've been there. It's a great museum in that sense, right? Of telling Canada's story of the war. It's not just about Normandy. It's about Canada's story, all these different parts, and trying to attract people from across Europe to come see it and learn about Canada in and of itself. But there's also the commemorative part. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about specifically, why I think the JBC is important in that sense. It's a center of organization. It's a center of commemoration. And when I mean organization, it gives a rallying point. It gives something to work around. All of that stuff. Like, you can use it as literally a focal point if you're there. You can use it to stand and talk. That's cool. That's great. And it's got the story of trying to tell Canada's story, which is amazing in and of itself, and an educational piece, which I greatly admire. I don't know the specifics of everything. I don't know. I don't want to say I know. I don't know what the future holds. I never say I do, because I never do. Because who does? COVID's taught us that we have no idea what's coming. What I do want to say is I think the Juno Beach Centre is important, and it's worth fighting to keep. If said condo development is a threat to the actual livelihood and life of the center, that's a problem. To me, that is a problem. Again, I don't know what that means and what that looks like. And Pat makes an excellent point here. We went back to ensure the French determine what happens on French land. I agree. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. It's French territory. They've been more than generous in giving Canadians land for memorials and things like that, from Vimy to the Juno Beach Centre to all those little, the granite blocks that mark all the First World War battles and all of that stuff. I think they've done a good fair share of that. What I mostly concerned is condos being on Juno Beach. That's not a concern I, specifically or personally have. Again, that's just my own opinion. No one else's. This is just me. And again, I don't have all the facts. I don't have an issue with, say, if they put a condo up. There are condos there now. They're not in this spot as close to the beach, but there's a lot of stuff close anyway, right? There's houses on the other side that are right there. They're famous for being there, right? Because they were there. These are new, so they're going to get some people's backs up. If it can be done without threatening the livelihood of the center, I don't see it as a bad thing necessarily. Some people might not like that, me saying that, but I think it's got to be a balance here. It's got to be exactly what Pat said. It's French land. French people have to have determination over what happens with their own land. But the JBC needs to be able to function. I think it is important. I think it's important for the French people. I think it's important for the Canadian people. I think it's important for the local people. It brings people there. It's a tourist draw as well, right? If this closes, people are going to go to Courseulles and Rennes-sur-Mer and all these places. But having this center here literally brings people in. Do you want to take away a livelihood? I mean, I wouldn't. It's something I would think that they would want to keep. Sorry, I'm just reading more messages. Keep going. I think that this would be in everyone's interests. And I'm talking about on the ground, local political level, right? Local businesses should want this here, I would think. Business organizations love people coming in because that's how you get money. And also, there's like mentioned for me in here that children come and visit museums and exhibits all the time, and they do. Saw them there when I was there. Like it's part of it. Same on the Somme, right? Like people come and they go to these things specifically, right? It's a balance between. Well, thanks for watching, and thanks for all the points and questions. Much appreciated. It's a balance. I think there's a balance. I think there's a way forward. Again, I don't know at all local politics of the area. I was only there for a couple of weeks. I don't understand the delicacies or just the delicate nature of all the relationships and who's knowing what. I've given my support behind JBC outright. I say you guys' work is important. You need to. If this condo is a threat, then this is a threat. That's my concern. it's a condo on historic land. I get that. I mean, I'm a North American. Everything in Europe seems historical to us, right? We fight to say, to preserve dilapidated houses from the 1890s. And Europe's full of castles, and other parts of the world are full of temples that are thousands of years old. So everything to us seems historic over there. But how do you live, right? If you don't touch anything or develop anything ever again. I get that. And I'm concerned, and this is going to sound weird, but I grew up moved when I was younger to a newer subdivision. If you don't like new housing development, living around construction sites sucks. It's just awful. Construction equipment, dirt, dust, mud. It's awful. I hated it. And I know that would keep people away from the center, which I think is the concern. It keeps people away from the center, keeps revenue away from the center, which might cause long-term problems. I get that. They've already had, a shellacking with COVID, right? That took a huge chunk out of the revenue. So I can see the concern over any more revenue being lost and causing issues in the future. I don't know what the way forward is. Buy the land from the developers, always on the table. Make the thing go away by just taking the land and paying them off. I don't know if there's money to do that, but that's an option. If people get together and be like, "Oh, thanks for coming, Thomas," and watching, thank you, and all of that. I mean, what that is even look like, I don't know. Or come together and make a new plan, a new road, work with the local governments. I don't know. I don't claim to have an answer, but I'm just saying that the Juno Beach Centre is so important that the idea of it is worth fighting for and worth keeping. So if there is a threat to it, and an existential threat to the center, that's problematic. I have an issue there. If they slap up condos and the center's fine, so be it. I'm good with that too. It's a part of scrubland. I've seen it. It was a dumpy old building that they tore down. So be it. If that's where it goes there, that's what goes there. That's not the big area where stuff came through. Things like Canada House, other centers of commemoration, the memorials are all on the other side anyway. And there's lots right inside Courcelles itself. So we don't lose that. But if it's a threat to how the center functions, right? And if something can't bring in money now, that threatens the future. That's business, that's organizations that work nonprofit, whatever. You need money to survive. That's just the thing of this game, right? The history game that gets talked about, but in hushes and tones and innuendos. If you don't have money, you can't do anything. You have to pay people, people have to eat, and people have to, pay rent and mortgages. If we're not funding these things and there's no way to bring in money, they go away. That's just my experience in all of this and trying to do this my own way, my own self. If you don't have money, it's gone. You can't keep this stuff up from goodwill and just doggedness. It's not enough. Money is necessary. So if people can donate to the Juno Beach Centre to help, I know that. Lots of stuff on the website. And I talked to, Alex came on the channel to talk about the new exhibit on Dieppe, which is up through the summer, I believe, and maybe a bit into the fall. But there's links in that live stream, which if you haven't seen, you should check it out because it's going to be a really good exhibit. And it's a good primer if anyone gets to go in the next little while. And if you do, I'm jealous. I wish I could have gone this summer, but just didn't work out. Yeah, I think that's my thoughts. I've been thinking about this for a long time when I first learned about it and all of that. So again, I like Pat said, it's French land. Determine what you're doing with French land. That was kind of the point, right? The Germans came in and tried to tell them what to do, and look how that went. We can't do the same, but in that sense, they worked with the French people to put the JBC up, right? They have a vested interest in many ways in its continuation. So I think that should be everyone's goal, is to keep the JBC going instead of, say, lining up only behind condo developers to put up a block. I don't care if it's the biggest condo building on the face of the planet. It's still not going to be worth it to undo all this. If there's a way to do both going forward, do it. Please do. That's my opinion only, but that's my thought. It's not saying, I don't think putting up condos is going to destroy the historical nature of Juno Beach or Courcelles or any of that. I think it's good enough as it's got what it needs. I don't think a condo is going to ruin that. But it's a tightrope to walk. It's not easy. I know the Juno Beach Centre needs help, depending on how the legal stuff shakes out. Again, I don't know French law. I know can have issues, and local politics are always local politics, and there's always issues there. But that's just my thoughts. And there's all kinds of campaigns being organized to try and trying to pressure groups, things like that. So you can give support to them as well. Interest groups, that's the word I'm looking for from my old poli-sci days. Yes, Great Dominion. Apparently Trudeau and Macron have taken time to discuss. Yes, they did. I think I agree, though. Not sure it can be dealt with effectively at that level. I agree. I think that's too high. I don't think that either of them can really do much. Again, I don't know French systems of governance and what higher level federal government can do, or not federal, whatever. The higher level of government that runs the country. Don't jump on me, please. Or what Trudeau as a federal level Canada, I know he, particularly in another country, they can fund JBC till it's blue in the face, but it's not going to be enough. Also, I know they won't, because we do horrible history funding in this country. Horrible track record of it, painfully so. So yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on it. Yeah, so help if you can. It's kind of important to me. Yes, and this is a good point too, Pat, is establishing the links to the future generation of French children or France as the nation. I think it's important for them as well. That's why I think there's a vested interest from the French from multiple perspectives, like money, right? Money makes the world go round. People got to eat. I get it. But also establishing that connection and why France is the way it is today, right? Without those ally landings, I don't know what France looks like, right? Yeah, they have what they have because of their own work in a lot of ways, but also because of what the other countries did and those who died, and a lot who died to make that happen. So I think it's important to remember. So again, my way forward to thinking is just make sure the JVC is okay. Another question, unless anybody had any other questions about that or more thoughts about that. That's how I feel. Hopefully I didn't upset anybody with that. Sorry, there's another question here. Okay, sorry, I just need some water. Academic job market, oh God. It's terrible. In my experience, awful. I've tried to get jobs, sessional jobs. I can't get them. Plain and simple. I hear a lot of people complaining in other places, other larger countries, one that may or may not be to the south of us with a much larger population, complaining that they're stuck in these jobs, which is terrible, right? They don't get paid as much. And all right, thanks, Pat. Thanks for coming out. And thanks for the questions and insights. It's much appreciated. But they have opportunities, right? There's a lot more colleges, universities, that kind of thing. Yeah, they're doing crappy work at the time, and at least they get a chance. We don't get a chance. There's very limited number of universities in this country, and less of them are making history an important part of any of it. And particularly anyone with my academic background is even less important. History is being squeezed out, and then military history, because it seemed to be this old stodgy discipline, which it is not, which is one of the things I try to show with this channel, is being squeezed out. As an example, I did my PhD at University of Ottawa, right? Ottawa University of Ottawa, geez. And at one point they had, what was it, 5 military historians? Now there's 2, if that. If one's not even considered a military historian, even though he is, because he was my supervisor. And they never replaced them. And that's happening elsewhere. So I think tenure track jobs are few and far between. Ottawa's hired nobody in the last 5 years. They've hired 1 tenure track person. And all the sessional jobs go to a certain group of people that I'm not part of. It's not to be a sob story, but it's just my experience. It's awful. I don't know about other disciplines. Sorry. I'm not in tune with it as much as I used to be, right? I graduated technically in October, but I finished my PhD, the whole process in August. And I just haven't been any connections to really academics since then. right with COVID and me trying to do my own thing and taking on contracts, I'm not really in touch with other academics on a daily basis, or involved in universities in any way, shape, or form. I've applied to get jobs in the last little while, like I said, and it goes nowhere. Yeah, so I personally, I've kind of given up on academics completely. If something cool comes up, I apply, or something I'm qualified for comes up, I apply, but I'm not holding my breath in any way, shape, or form anymore. But that's just me, right? That's just my experience, my limitations, right? I only speak English. I do military history, even though I can do all kinds of different stuff because I've done it in the past. Yeah, that's just my experience. So I can only speak to what I think and what I've dealt with and all that stuff. So for me personally, I think it's the jig is up. So yeah, I think it's the discipline is going to suffer as a result, but no one's seeming to do anything about it. We're always fighting, and this is something I wanted to talk about. This came up. Oh, it always comes up. It's like cyclical around here. We have a certain historian who keeps bringing up that the national history is not being taught and military history is disappearing and people don't know about Confederation and all that stuff. And then, the more political military history is dying. And then people are like, well, we need social history. And I agree. But I agree with both sides. That's the problem. We need both. We don't need one or the other. The problem is we're not looking at the bigger picture. The history discipline is dying and we're fighting each other. We're fighting over scraps when we should be uniting and fighting for the life of the discipline. We fight over who's teaching what course when, who's in charge of what chair and what department and what courses should be taught and what's the direction of the department when there is the whole threat gone. All disappearing. We should be uniting and not fighting each other. There shouldn't be knife fights on social media about crap that doesn't matter in the end of the day. About who's doing what and where and when, and is history being done, period. And that's my observations from being in university recently, how people think about these things, how people go about these things, and people having an active interest in making sure history is not taught or not taught really at all, leaving myths. Oh, hey, Pete, thanks for coming on. There's a lot of people benefit from having an illiterate, I'll just say illiterate historical population because it gets them certain things. And we're seeing that with funding being slashed all over the place. See it all climb in the United States. Whole, universities are slashing whole arts departments or arts faculties, which is just shocking. That's insane. Sorry, it's just nuts. They're just slashing everything, and that's going to be bad. And I don't know where Canada's going to go. I think history's under threat, and we should stop knife fighting over stupid crap that doesn't matter at the end of the day. Who cares what papers are getting published in an academic journal if no one's going to be able to do history, period? Doesn't matter. You can have different thoughts on me than this, but that's my thought. And then acting on, just answering GD's question about that. My experience, it's awful. No one's going to there's not going to be much. Tenure track, I think, is on the way out. And people are going to cling to those jobs till death, literally. And nobody new is going to get a chance unless they get some sort of endowed chair or know someone in some way, shape, or form. But that's nothing to rely on to keep a discipline alive now, is it? So anyway, yeah, that's another pessimistic note, but that's been asked. Book in your future? No. Right now, no. Unfortunately. I know I keep talking about this, and this is something going back, I think he left. Sorry, I can't remember the name. I think Keith left. If he's still here, let me know. But this is all part of this. That I guess this is one of the things I did want to talk about also, particularly to you guys who are my hardcore supporters. So sorry, go back to your question, Angela. No, that was the plan right away. I was going to finish the dissertation. They say wait a little bit, and I was going to wait a little bit, but then do the book proposal, get that moving, and do it academically. There's no money there at all, like at all ever. And trying to get it with trying to do the work I did with a popular publisher in terms of like popular history or trade history will be impossible. No one's going to give a crap about what I did. I'm not a big name, obviously. Hardly anybody outside like the digital sphere knows who I am. People don't care about Hong Kong really at all, unfortunately. I know you guys, some of you do, or all of you, but a lot of people don't care. So publishers not going to care because they're not going to make any money. I can't invest the time and effort it will take to revise my dissertation into a book format. Make any money, and I won't be able to eat or pay my bills, and my wife will not be very happy about that. I don't see how I can do that without it taking 20 years. Maybe working on it an hour a week hardly seems an effective way to do it. I can't afford to do it, and I don't know how anyone else does this. I guess they take sessional work as professors, or they just scrimp and save to make it happen. I don't know how they do it. Honestly, I don't know. Unless you're one of the big established names, good luck. Because you won't make any money. And I'm just, it's not possible for me to do. I have student loans I have to repay. I have to take jobs that are going to pay me money, whatever they may be. I need to do that. Like I would love to do this. I would love to be independently wealthy and not have to worry about any of that. But I have to pay my loans back. And it's a big wear on me. It's a big heavy weight because it was a lot. And it was a lot to finish the PhD because it took longer than anticipated. So I had to do more, which is not fun. But it's a heavy burden on me to keep things going. A book is probably not going to happen anytime soon. If it does, I really wish, but I'm not holding my breath. It's just so much work. It's so much work, and it's so hard. The dissertation did a number on me. And doing it again with no support, like I always say, like I have very little resources. Like I have great patrons who are helping me, but they can only do so much. Like they can't fund me to work all day long on this stuff. It's just not possible. But I do have a fair number of you now, 51. Got a new patron today, so thank you. And getting more and more all the time is amazing. But it's just, that's the nature of the beast. I have to do other things to move forward. So yeah, sorry, Angela, it's a bit of a downer. I always wanted to write books. It's what I've always wanted to do. The path to that. I was wrong, unfortunately. I hope I'm wrong about being wrong. I really do. But as I see it now, it's not going to happen. I'd love to write on everything, but I can't. I can barely have time to do, like today, I purposely just booked it, like not booked today off, I do my own thing, but like set the projects aside for today to focus on DDay because it's important. And I wanted to talk to you guys in this format because you guys are great supporters and it's just easier to organize my thoughts instead of trying to get it down and onto social media. It's tough. Doing what I do is tough. It's been difficult lately, very difficult. So this is like one of the big things I did want to talk about, the future of everything I'm doing. How do I say this? I've said this in the past that I'm not sure how long this is going to last. I love doing OTD. I love it. I started, for those of you who don't know or might not know the story, I did, this is going to, story time. Back in the day, I was in an HR program. I thought HR was going to be my path because it was going to give me a job and there was lots of available jobs, and there was, until I lived in one of the worst hit economic areas of Canada at the time. London, Ontario's jobless rate was double digits. Couldn't find a job in HR, so I took a job in sales. But they used to say, network, you're behind off, and Twitter was one way to do it because Twitter was super popular back in, oh God, I feel old now. It was like 10 years ago. It was very popular to do and to connect with people. So they said, do that. So, but I did, and it didn't work out. So, and then I worked a job I hated and couldn't do it anymore. without some serious repercussions on my mental health. Left it to do the PhD, the thing I always wanted to do. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do, ever in life. It was my one thing, was do what I did. And I did it. It's done. And a lot of sacrifices to get that done. But anyway, so one day I was thinking about, okay, getting to the end, start networking more. I've been networking since the beginning, and Twitter was one way to do it. And I thought, okay, it's all well and good to have opinions on historical topics and be like, I'm a historian as a personal bio and blah, blah, blah. That's cool. I mean, I don't barely use my personal account anymore. But I thought, hey, let's offer something. Let's offer something that doesn't exist. I saw a few that just did like on this day, random history. And this was years ago now, 3 years ago or so and change. And there was like music ones and people were just talking about military history in general and all that stuff. There was, rock, music, sports, all kinds of stuff. I was like, well, that's cool. There's got to be a Canadian one. It's got to exist. And then that's when I started to realize how little Canada's military history is discussed. So I was like, oh, okay, well, there's a niche I can fill. It won't be that much work, right? There's lots of resources. I know how to research really easy. I can do a topic every day. It's not a big deal, right? And it just kind of started to get bigger. I mean, it's not big by social media standards, but by Canadian military history standards, for someone like me running it, one person with nothing else, just me. I'm the only one who's ever done any work on OTD. I don't have a team, never have. I am my team. It just kind of kept going and getting more attention, and people really started enjoying it and getting to hear about all the different things. I got lots of good feedback all the time about, oh, I never heard about this, or I knew this, but I didn't know it to this detail. And even I'm just doing it in tweets, right? And that's not that much detail, and people are loving it. And big organizations started following me, military branches, museums, government organizations, and big name historians and other people. And it just something that just kind of kept going. So that was all well and good and really cool. And I thought eventually, hey, this is cool. Keep that going because I enjoy it, and expanded it to other social media platforms as well. I don't put as much attention into those as I probably should, but I just don't have the time to do it all. And I just enjoy Twitter the most because it's a great community on there. Whereas Facebook is a bit of a sewer, and Instagram, I just don't really like it. It's not my thing. But I do run it, and those aren't going anywhere. And neither is the OTD Twitter account. Anytime soon, anyway. I don't have any plans to get rid of anything. But eventually I started to talk about the things I already talked about today. I started to realize, right, the way history's going, what's popular, what's not. And TikTok became really popular, right? Because that was a couple of years ago. And it was a realization, like things like YouTube are the future. I think videos are the future of history. There's so much good stuff out there now. I think it's only going to get better, and I think it's only going to get more important. If you don't have a presence like this, it's you're behind. You're already behind. You're behind in the races, right? If you're an institution and you're not cranking out stuff on social media or YouTube every day or all like a couple times a week, you're behind. You are getting left in the dust by other people, and you will have less and less say, especially as this new generation gets more money and power. You're done for. So I think, oh, okay, I'll do a YouTube channel. I don't know what it's going to look like, and I'll make it up as I go along. And it's just kind of taken off from there. And that's when the Patreon support started to come in to help me and get things like the software I'm literally using today, right now, and we'll be using later with Mark Milner, which I'm really excited for. Things like that. So, and it's amazing to have that kind of support. And I've talked about this before, but not like this. I don't know if I can do this much longer. And Rob makes an interesting point because he does work on the observation parties for the landings and things like that. Sorry, I don't know the cup stuff as well as I should, Rob. But it's great stuff. The website I did poking around for a couple hours one day, and it was awesome. And the stuff you've done and all that stuff. Yeah, and he does it as a hobby, and it starts to feel like an obligation more than enjoying it. It's more of that it's not a hobby per se, because I don't have like another full-time job, right? I'm trying to integrate this into what I do full-time. I do my full-time, usually I'm like, what do you do in a given day, Brad? Well, I'm usually researching for other people or doing writing for other organizations and things like that. That's how I get paid usually. Research for museums and institutions and helping them with advice and things like that. But that doesn't pay much either, unfortunately. And this stuff is not paying me much at all. I have Patreon. obviously. And if you could support, that's amazing. Please do if you can. I put a link below because it automatically uploads. If you can, that'd be amazing. It makes a huge difference. It might not seem like it, but it does. Every dollar, Canadian dollar, for you Brits, it's not much. Even for you Americans, it's not much because our dollar sucks because of the whole oil thing. Sorry, diatribe. Anyway, it's difficult to be enough. And I'm not making any money from YouTube yet. And even if when I start to, it won't be much. So my concern is this won't last much longer. I have lots of people coming up to me with great ideas and all that fun stuff. And it's amazing. And I would do it if I had a team behind me and any sort of income or the time to put into it. I just don't. And I don't want to stop, but I think I might have to. It's not that I'm walking away because I want to. I wish I could do this all the time, like every day. That would be amazing. I would love to do this all the time. Take Canadian history, put it into the digital sphere, get people excited about it, get people learning, get people going to different things, getting people to learn about stories they never heard about, getting to know the stories that they've heard, go to institutions, go to museums, help out museums do that kind of thing. I'd love to do it. I don't think I can. I don't think it's going to work. The student loans are dragging me down. There's a lot of them. There's no relief coming. It's only going to get worse. I got a new Patreon right now. That is amazing. Thank you, Barry. I really appreciate that. I think you're still watching. It means a lot. Thank you so much. That's what it's going to take. I'm going to say this now. Nothing is ever definite. I already said that. I planned this Normandy month since March, February. I've been getting as many people together as I can. Those of you who are already patrons know basically what the lineup's going to be. I was hoping it was going to be a bit bigger, but then life, right? Life happens. And thank you, Barry. It's so appreciated. Thank you. That's a big boost for me today. I needed it. So thank you. 2 patrons added today. That's amazing. What was I saying? Sorry, I get distracted. Right. I don't know what the future looks like. I've been planning this Normandy month for quite a while. It's getting quite a bit of attention, but getting into the YouTube algorithm is not easy. You have to keep fresh content coming all the time. Like you got to be constantly new stuff. Like that's why live streams are great because they don't take scripting, right? And that's why I like doing them, but also because I love interacting with you guys. I love it. It's amazing. This is what I wish history was. Discussions. May not always agree with each other and it might get snippy and stupid, but it's amazing that it exists, that there's a community that wants this. I never had that growing up. I never had that when I was in my 20s. It might have existed. I just didn't know about it. I never got to be like, hey, I'm going to throw out a question on Twitter and people are going to jump in and we're going to talk about it for a couple hours. Like, I love that. Like, that is amazing to me. That is all I ever wanted. I just don't know if it's something I can keep up. I want to see how this month goes, how much support it gets, how well it does on YouTube with viewership, with the live streams during and after, little videos I can put together. Because again, they're harder to do because I'd take a bunch of old ones off. Yeah, I did. Yes, I didn't get married. GD back in April, even though I've basically been married for years. We were supposed to get married a long time ago. We were supposed to get married years ago. COVID threw everything for a loop. So we've basically been married for years. It doesn't feel like anything changed in that regard, but it's just more of a lot of reflecting time. I was away on the honeymoon, right? So that gave me time to literally stop and think about it. I didn't think about daily life things like, oh, I got to do dinner. And what about this bill? And, oh, no, the dishwasher again is acting up. Or, oh, this, thing needs help, or whatever, this thing needs to be fixed, or the garbage has to go out. Like, there's that time to think, right? And I'm just thinking about, I have ideas on how stuff could move forward, but I just need help. That's the problem. And trying to get help is not easy. People with money is limited. Attention spans are limited. It's only 24 hours in a day. So I want to see how this month goes. So if I know you guys, I'm preaching to the choir here, preaching to the converted, or whatever the sayings are. I just don't know if it's going to be sustainable moving forward. I may have to pull back a lot. I don't know. I'm trying to get a full-time job because everything else is just not working. because those student loan payments are going to come up on me real bad, real fast. So those are going to have to get paid off. Otherwise, my credit will be destroyed. So I can't put the time and effort into it I'd love to do. It just doesn't pay. These are truths that hardly ever get talked about. No one ever mentions money. Ever. It hardly ever comes up. It's not nice to talk about. It's not proper. It's whatever. It's supposed to be hush hush. But I think the discipline is going to die because there's no money. Canadian history, military history will die without more support. I'm not just talking about me. If I go away, whatever. But if other people can't do it, it'll go away. Right? If we just have a war museum and a couple of regimental museums, that's not enough. Yeah, larger operations than yours that one do the same thing. I don't know if that makes me feel any better. That they can't survive, and what am I? I'm nothing in those grand scheme of things, which is kind of depressing to think about, just to be honest. So I know, again, preaching to those who know all this and love this stuff and are great supporters and are coming to live streams and watching after and commenting and becoming patrons and all of that. If there's anything you can do to help, and not even money, it doesn't even have to be monetary. I need signal boosts all the time. So if you see stuff on social media, like a quick like and a retweet does a huge deal. You wouldn't think so, but it does. I've had lots of people be like, "Oh, nobody knows. I don't have many followers." I'm like, it doesn't matter. That's algorithms. It's numbers. As long as it keeps, a momentum, it keeps going, right? I see it all the time when stuff blows up, like today, because D-Day, literally hashtag D-Day is trending. My stuff is blowing up. That's what it takes, right? It just takes some momentum, and you got to keep that momentum going. And I just need help to get that rock moving, if that analogy makes any sense. So for this month moving forward, any support with like retweets and coming to the live streams, even for a few minutes, and sharing them on various platforms, and just saying you enjoy the topic, or you didn't, or you liked this, or you didn't, any comments or anything, even the negativity helps, because it's interaction. Again, it's algorithms, it's all that stuff. It's part of it. And yeah, so if you could help in that regard, it makes a big deal, and it means a lot to me. But also means that you care. And that means a lot. It always does. That means tons to me, that you're willing to do something, because a lot of people aren't willing to do even the slightest bit of things for anything ever, and that's just depressing. So it's difficult to do, but yeah. So any and all help is amazing, especially because, again, I'm doing Canadian stuff, but I have Americans watching, Brits watching. It's amazing, and I love it. I love that I get support from across the pond and south of the border, and it's amazing, and I love it. And also that helps, right? Because it disperses the algorithm, and different people are interested. So any help like that, like things like on YouTube, like the liking is huge, or the commenting is big time, or all that stuff is amazing. So if you can do that, thank you. That would go a long way in helping this month be more successful, and seeing what this can look like in the future, and seeing how I can make things work. So another quick question here. Grants. Yes, there are government grants. It's just I can't get them. I'm not an organization. A lot of them say individuals are not eligible. I'm just one person. OTD is not really it's not an organization. It doesn't exist anywhere other than on social media or YouTube. YouTube is social media, I suppose. It doesn't exist anywhere other than the digital sphere. It's an entity that doesn't actually exist. And I don't know if I can make it into something more. Again, it's the money thing. Can I do something with it? I don't know. Can I make it a nonprofit? I don't know. Could I make it a business? I don't know. I haven't had the time to think about it, or time to look into it, or time to make a plan. I need to set a chunk of time aside, and that's why I want this month. That's why I wanted this month to see what it could look like, what I could do with consistent content, and bringing in names, and bringing in exciting topics and new stuff, focused around a theme, and see if that makes a difference. Again, just like it's experimenting. I've been experimenting, doing more shorts. That's been amazing. It's been getting lots of support. So it's going to take some time, but it's just I want to be honest with you guys, because I do value you guys' opinions. You guys help me. You guys call me out when stuff's not good. You make things better. So I just like being honest and talking it out. It feels good to do that. So that's just kind of my thinking. Nothing's ever set in stone. I never say that. But I'm just, again, this is, I think I posted last week. I think this is the crossroads I was worried about coming, and it's coming now, and it's coming pretty fast. So, yeah, we'll see how June goes. Yeah, I think that's really all I had to say on that. Yeah. So if you can support, please do in any way, shape, or form. Watch old videos, watch them again. That does help a lot, actually. And liking them, leaving comments is a big one, because that's what the system sees, and that's how the algorithm works. And because I know you guys are interested in this stuff, so just a little extra push would be amazingly, amazingly helpful. Oh, D-Day questions have come back in. That is amazing. Sorry, I need some water. I haven't stopped talking in like 20 minutes. Okay, we can stop talking about my pressing views on things. Okay. Military Cross, military medal. Oh, close to being a Victoria Cross. Oh, geez. Oh, God. Oh, there were so many of them. That's a tough question. I don't know. I can't really answer that one. I'm sorry. I wish I could. Nothing's... What was established as a Victoria Cross in the Second World War is different than, like, say, the First World War. And I'm not the first person to say this. The First World War, they were giving them out for all kinds of things, like VCs all over the place. Some very, very well deserved. Some not so much. Second World War, more stingy with them, right? They're less likely to give them out. It has to be huge. Like, it's big. Like, some of them, political reasons, all that crap, whatever. Things that are, should be VC worthy, maybe not. I mean, things like David Curry, like, that is VC worthy. That stands out. That was leadership. That was being a military leader. That's leadership, period. That's above and beyond, going above, doing the right thing, putting yourself to the limit. He literally fell asleep standing up when it was all over and fell over. Like, he was literally going to every tank, going to every foxhole, slit trench. America sneaks in. All that stuff. That to me is like the VC worthy stuff in a Canadian context. D-Day, lots of heroism, not denying that. I know what it took to get those beaches. We talked about tons last night on, again, yesterday afternoon, with Kevin, with the Reginas. There's lots of instances there where there's worthy of the military cross or military medal based on the rank. That's the difference. Cross for officers and military medal for other ranks at the time. Bravery, undoubted. Dashing across a fire-swept alley covered by barbed wire. Bravery nonetheless. Bravery to an amazing degree. VC worthy? No, not in my opinion, but this is just my opinion, right? This is all opinion. This is just me studying what I'd studied, knowing the stories I know, because I highlight a lot of the Canadian VCs from the First World War, because there's just so many, right? Like, there's just so many. It's like, in some, I don't think were deserved at all, or there's no way to even prove what they did and that they claimed they did. That happened by a certain aviator. I won't get into that. But in Second World War, there's things where people are literally going above and beyond. Like Paul Trinquet, I can't talk. Like, in Italy, that was friggin' insane what he did. Like, it was insane. Like, it's just madness. Like, Hampton Gray dying to take that ship out at the end of the war. Like, that is VC worthy. What was done at D-Day was what needed to be done. Now, this can be controversial, but this was also the opinion of the commanders at the time. A lot of the time is just, you're doing your job. This is what you signed up to do. This is what we trained you to do. The example comes to mind again is First is Ours, a video I never actually got to make, and maybe I can in the future, about Lieutenant, Lieutenant, God, the American sneaks in real good. Is it Bill? Lieutenant Henry. Thanks for watching, Angela. I know you got to go do your thing too, so I appreciate it and your support in all ways, shapes, or forms. You are an amazing person. Thanks, Angela. Gordon Henry. It takes a second. Lieutenant Gordon Henry. He took out, well, his tank took out, what, 4 Panzers in the span of a few minutes? He was told, you're just doing your job. He never got any recognition. The association doesn't know anything about him. There's nothing in their museum about him. Maybe now, but not now, because of Mark Milner, which we'll probably talk about later tonight. But I don't know. I don't know if those actions were anything that goes above and beyond of what was necessary to do. I don't think. Well, there's only one VC given out, right? So for the Commonwealth that day. I mean, by the measure of what they did with what Curry did, is that's the benchmark of leadership, or what Smokey Smith did. I mean, that's a high bar to meet, and I don't think any of the Canadian, again, I mean, like I've said, a relative killed there. I've studied these stories for years. High respect for every one of those men on that beach who fought their way forward. Is everyone deserving of the Victoria Cross? Obviously not. I don't think enough of what happened that particular day was good enough, to be honest. But that's, again, just my opinion. Again, I'm happy to be counter-argued. If you disagree with me and are watching now or in the future, fire away. Please do. I'm always willing to change my mind. But it's just things like D-Day. That's what it takes to make those kinds of operations successful. Right? That's what it takes. It takes the individual, sometimes on the individual scale, to take out a casemate, to knock a gun out of service. Is that going above and beyond, or is that literally your objective? I don't know. I used to think there should have been more given out, but now I'm starting to kind of doubt my own thoughts on that. And with gallantry medals and what that means, and combat motivation, and all of that stuff, all of the gallantry medals, what those even mean, all of that. I mean, I just been rethinking about that a lot, just because of reading so many stories and really digging into the VC stories from the Second World War. Like with, the first one given out to a Canadian in the war, like Osborne in Hong Kong. Like, he not just jumping on a grenade that killed him and saved the lives of many. That wasn't just that in alone was worth the VC. But what's not talked about is what he did the rest of that day. He led that whole group by himself. He covered a whole retreat by himself. He was literally picking up grenades and throwing them out the window when they were about to cook off by himself. One he couldn't get to in time, and it got him killed because he jumped on it on purpose. That's a leader. That's what it takes to win something this big. That's supposed to be this big. So I just don't know stories are enough for a VC, right? That's just my opinion. But Pete, you make a good point here. Again, I'm not in charge of any of this. So the French did give those who fought in France and were still alive the Legion of Honor in 2014. Yes, they did. Going by the history and precedents for the Victoria Cross, it's just that's great for France to do. I think that's amazing, an amazing thing to do. And the Legion of Honor is their highest level, right? But the Victoria Cross is seen differently, particularly within Canada. We have our own now, right? Like if it were ever to be given out, which it never has, it's a pretty high bar. There's a campaign right now to give one out for an action in Afghanistan that I think is gaining traction. I don't know. I haven't heard about it in a while, just because I've been focused on other things. But in Canada, especially, we set such a high bar. I don't know if it's ever going to be reached. I don't know what it takes, So I'm just going based on that, based on how few they gave out, the actions they didn't give them out for, how many were given out posthumously, all of that. So, I mean, a good number of them, and maybe there were stories that we will never know. that were deserving of a VC, right? That happens too. Some things we just never know. I mean, the whole section gets killed and something happened and we have no idea. Or they saved another section and we don't know, right? Because they're on the other side and got wiped out. Who knows? We don't know, right? So that's just kind of my thinking with the VCs. But again, if you want to argue with me, please do. I encourage you to. And if you have stories that you think are worthy, please let me know. If you're watching this far into a live stream that was kind of focused around just kind of D-Day, but this is kind of, as they always do, morphed into something bigger, and I say better because I love talking about this stuff, like I already said. Anyway, so that's just my thought. Yeah, like Pete, and again, good point. Why so many in the First World War and Second World War? I don't know. I haven't done any digging on, you know, the actual focus of like the politics and the bureaucracy of giving them out. Like I know the process, but like I haven't been able to read like the ones that were given on the First World War and like how that went about and what these people were thinking in relation to them. Whereas I know in the Second World War, it was damn hard to get one. First World War, sometimes they were just giving them out for like taking out a machine gun with like a whole section. It's just like, isn't that what your job is? Isn't that what you signed up to do? Again, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but you know what I mean? Like at some point you got to draw a line, right? This is literally your job. Like this is what you're assigned to do. This is what you're trained to do. This is what we expect you to do. Does everyone get a medal of this high level for doing what they're supposed to be doing? I mean, Curry didn't have to do what he did. He didn't have to go to every foxhole. He didn't have to go to every tank. He didn't have to stay awake as long as he did. Like, he didn't have to keep fighting the way he did. He didn't have to go recce the area basically by himself the way he did. He didn't have to do any of that. He didn't have to move around in the darkness as Germans are slipping past the tanks and touching them and yelling out Panzer and taking off, or climbing over tanks and then machine gunning them off. He didn't have to do any of that. He could have stayed further back, kept better organization. So that's kind of my thinking with that one. Yeah, I mean, it's just by the bar that was set. And of course, most of these people have now passed on, so I don't think many of these things are going to change. I know there's been campaigns in the United States to give out more medals of honor to those who are deserving or rejected for reasons of racism or some sort of prejudice. I don't think that's what we're dealing with here in Canada in certain cases. Maybe with, well, one of my favorites, Tommy Prince, maybe, because that guy did some crazy stuff. He was one of the best soldiers in Canadian history, no doubt. Did he deserve a VC? I don't know. Maybe for collectively, maybe. He did some crazy stuff with the 1st Special Service Brigade. Force, sorry, not brigade. Devil's Brigade. But he never got it because he was Indigenous. He was awarded, like, highly decorated, but not a VC. So... But I think a lot of things in the U.S., Americans, it was based on racism and prejudice and why these medals were rejected. And some of those wrongs are being righted now. But I don't know if that's going to happen here for different reasons, because I don't think they were rejected from, say, a VC for that reason. I just don't think it fits the bill, right? That had been written well before in the early parts of the war, like I already talked about, like what Osborne did. That's pretty high precedent to set, right? Because, again, he didn't have to cover that retreat. He didn't have to lead those charges up that hill. Anyone could have done, he could have had anyone do that, right? He could have left a section behind, a few men with a Bren and covered the retreat, but he did it. So it's just some of those actions don't really match a D-Day. And luckily, a lot of them weren't needed. Thanks to training and strategy and tactics and all that good stuff. So that's also a good thing too, right? Sometimes these not giving out is a good thing because it didn't take extreme actions to do it. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions else. We're going on 2 hours now. If anyone new has just jumped in has any questions or anything they'd love to chat about, please let me know. I already did my sad spiel, so I'm not doing that again. Oh, okay, cool. From Barry. The history guy's done a vid today on the parachute brigade. Oh, okay. At Veraville. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to check that out. I wish there was more done on those guys, to be honest. There's a couple books, but they're pretty old. And they don't get attention really at that way, shape, or form, because they don't exist anymore, right? We don't have an airborne part anymore. We have individuals who are trained in airborne parts and sections of regiments and parts of battalions. We don't have an airborne regiment anymore or an airborne battalion. That's gone. Some of you might not be aware of what happened in Somalia that led to the disbanding. We talked about that on a live stream with Charlotte and her new book that came into this. But that's why. So I don't think they have kind of, a cheerleader. There's some organizations on social media and maybe bigger. Again, I don't know their extent too well, that are taking up the mantle, but is it enough? It doesn't seem like it. And it's one battalion. We have many, right? But that battalion doesn't have a cheerleader anymore. Oh yeah, no worries, Barry. It's I thought it might have been on the whole brigade because they're part of, well, they're interlocked, right? Those battalions need to support each other to take out the guns, right? On the coast. So sorry, I thought it was about actually the brigade. Because they were part of a British brigade, obviously, in the 6th Airborne. Yeah, I just don't think they have anyone to really take up their mantle in that way to kind of keep everybody, them fresh in the minds. I try my best, but there's just limited resources on them out there. There's pictures and there's video and all that stuff, but there's no big things, right? There's no association. There's no physical building anymore. Like sometimes that matters, right? Like with with a regimental quarter, like headquarters and all that stuff. Like some of the older regiments have in Canada, they can organize anything, right? A regimental museum, right? That doesn't exist. There's airborne parts, but there are other museums. There's a little bit in the Canadian War Museum, but it's barely noticeable. And there's not much. There's some at Pegasus Bridge. I know that. I've seen it myself. Because of the whole airborne thing, obviously. But yeah, so there's just, hopefully they covered it really, really well. I don't know that channel all that well, so I'll have to go check it out. But that's awesome that a Canadian topic is getting attention on YouTube like that. I think they're a fairly big channel, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's awesome. Yeah, so that's cool. Especially because I know Pegasus Bridge gets the big attention with the gliders. I mean, it's an amazing feat that they did it, and it was done so well, and it went to plan, which is just mind-boggling that it went so well. Especially with gliders, right? Those things are finicky, heavy little things, right, with no power. So it's amazing that it worked out the way it did. And even with all the misunderstandings that went on, it still got pulled out. Sorry, I was just reading another question. Sorry. Yeah. Airborne video. Awesome. I'll check it out. I can share my thoughts later. Drinking war? There's a drinking war in the U.S. with our allies? Oh, no. History Explorer almost died from drinking with the Americans. That sounds of it. Sorry. Do you think they handed out more VCs in World War I than World War II because they actually believe it was the end of war to end all wars? Oh. That's a good one. I don't know. I don't even, well, this is an aside. I don't even know if a lot of them even believed it was a war to end all wars. I've read a lot of papers from a lot of generals and higher-ups, and soon, before that war is even over, they're getting ready for another one, because that's what they do. That's what soldiers do. They prepare for war. They don't prepare for war to be gone forever. So I don't know if that plays into the thinking and all of that. I don't think so. I think it has more to do with the view of warfare and a lot to do at the time, and that changing. I mean, there's VCs given out before the First World War for, again, feats that you're like, okay, cool. That doesn't seem like it was worth it, but all right. And you have even figures who want them and literally try to campaign for them. I mean, I bust on Sam Hughes all the time, but he literally did that. He felt he deserved 2 VCs for actions in South Africa, which is just insane because he was insane in some sort of undiagnosed kind of way. Anyway, so I think a lot of them are given out for not necessarily PR reasons in the way we think about it, but in terms of we need a rallying cry, the conditions are awful, we're trying to keep that under wraps as best as possible. We need a rallying thing to go around because we have less victories. And then the victories at the end are so sudden and so well done. I think that the more of those are given out because there's less, right? I'm talking about like the 100 days. Like there's less. Like there's a ton given out at Vimy, like Hill 70, that kind of thing. You're just like, oh, that's a lot. But the 100 days they start to taper off. Is it due to like lack of documentation? I don't know. But I don't think it's necessarily a concept that war is over. We have to reward this now because we want to show that war is over in some way, shape, or form, that these are gallant actions that are going to have a long-term impact. Because I don't think anyone was thinking like that. People in the popular media might be writing these things as much as they want. Doesn't mean anyone who's in actual position to do anything about it either A, cares, or is actually going to believe that. Because I just don't. Because I had to do a good chunk of research on our period to understand Army was so supportive of sending 2 battalions to Hong Kong, right? So early in the war. So I had to dig into this, and they're constantly talking about all kinds of things. They're talking about conscription, keeping it going. Peacetime conscription in Canada. Could you imagine? That would have been a mess. But what the next war is, they're not saying with who. They're saying, when. And how it's going to look and what we need to do to be ready, because we don't want another second Ypres. We don't want our first taste of this battle to be such a slaughter, even though that's going to end up happening anyway. That's a whole other thing. But I've never really bought into that war to end all wars kind of thinking. Yeah, sure, a lot of disillusioned junior officers are thinking that and writing amazing poems and such, and who are known by the majority of the public, but it doesn't mean that that's what people are actually thinking, because they weren't. A lot of them were just like, let's get this nonsense over with so we can go back to doing what we were doing in the Empire. There's a lot of that kind of thinking. Expand the British Empire, control the colonies, fight on the northwestern frontier in India, that kind of thing. Yeah, and this is kind of connected to the VC thing, as I think you're 100% right. GD, probably Billy Bishop wouldn't have won a VC under World War II conditions. No. Also, there's no record of anyone else seeing what he supposedly did for the conditions in which he won the VC. There's no record from anyone else. Which is not how it's supposed to work, right? It's supposed to be seen by an officer. And that never happened because he was flying by himself. And there's no, as far as I know, because people have looked into this, enough German records to prove what he did. Because the story doesn't add up in a lot of ways. So I think you're right. Conversely, 15 or so have been awarded since World War II. Well, we've awarded none in Canada. 0. Not a single one. We have our own now. Came in, I'm not sure why, not that long ago, a couple of decades ago. We went through Korea, right? Nothing. Lots of peacekeeping ops, lots of stuff was done there. The breakup of Yugoslavia, there were some pretty intense actions there. And then Afghanistan, quite a number of actions there as well. And nothing. There's, again, like I already said, a campaign for one. But it hasn't been changed yet. And I think, sorry, that gets a little stiff after not moving for a while. There's a campaign for one, but I just don't think it's going to happen with everything else going on right now, COVID and the war in Ukraine and all that stuff. I think that's going to be in the back burner for quite some time, unfortunately. I wish they would do something about it. But yeah, Britain has a different experience, right? Different wars, different interests, like Falklands and the Malaya Emergency, as it's called, and Kenya, and I'm not entirely sure where they're all awarded and things like that. So Canada doesn't quite have the same post-45 record, right, other than Korea. And then there's ones for all the Australians in Vietnam, which, of course, Canada was not there. Yeah, so Australian Defence Forces, 4 of them. So none for Canada, because Canada wasn't directly involved in Vietnam. Indirectly, big time, but not directly. Again, did another live stream on that. So that's the thinking there. And But yeah, I don't claim to be like an expert on the gallantry medals or anything like that. I know the stories. I know the gazettes and all that stuff and the stories and why they happened and all of that. But sorry, I'm just checking messages again. Yeah. Yeah. So that's that. I don't know if there's any other questions. Is there any other questions? Anybody's coming late? Anything they want to talk about? Want me to give my 2 cents? Fire away. I can give you a few minutes if you'd like. Sorry, I'm just going back. Family history, which is really cool. Education, which covered that quite a bit. Yeah, other countries not being recognized yet. I agree. Still doesn't mean Canada can't be recognized. Yeah. Okay, cool. I don't think there's anything missing or people have moved on. So this has been going a while. Yeah, so this is cool. I enjoyed talking about this stuff. Of course, we started with D-Day and things connected to it, to Normandy, and obviously these things always balloon into something else, which I love to do. So I can give it a few more minutes. Best Canadian beer. Oh, that's a good one. Best Canadian beer. I'm going to piss somebody off with my answer. You talking like microbrew or like the big names? I'm not a big fan of the big. I'm not a fan. I get bored. If that makes any sense. I get bored of certain like types of beer. Like Sleeman's pretty good. Like if someone's like, you need the big, pick one of the big boys. I'll go Sleeman because they're pretty good. I enjoy them because they're, especially in the summertime, because they're pretty easy to drink. I don't know. I try microbrews now because they're so interesting. There's all kinds of crazy stuff coming out, right? And it's fun. I just think it's fun. People are doing different stuff, and there's a bunch in Ottawa that I really like. Like Dominion City is pretty cool. What's the other ones? There's a whole bunch of them. Bose is outside the city. They're cool. Yeah. Anyway, there's microbrews all over the place now. So there's lots of different stuff. So I get bored and I try new stuff all the time, and I hardly come back to the same ones ever again. Keith's, I used to drink, from GD. I used to drink Keith's a lot, like towards the end of undergrad and years after, but I just kind of moved away from it. I barely drink now as it is. So that's why I like to, make it fun and something weird or something funky. That's just my thinking. Pronounced Quebec. It's Quebec. It's different. Again, it's a whole fight over that. Depending on who you are and what accent you use. I say Quebec. Take what that from you will. That's what I say. Or if I'm trying to be funny, I kind of ramp up the accent, that tough, that thick Quebecois accent. That's can be fun. And because I'm half French, I can do it. I was talking about that earlier, Pete. Well, we're back on beer here. That's the one I was talking about when I was talking about the Holy Roller, because Alex Black asked about seeing the Holy Roller in London. That's now back up in where it's spot in Vic Park. Oh, so they did a fundraiser. It was good. I liked it. It was hard to find up here, obviously, because I'm 7 hours away from London where it's made. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I don't know. Are they still selling them? Maybe I'll get one when I'm down, if they are. I had no idea. Can't say I've looked recently. Like I said, I don't drink that much. And I save my money for things like streaming software. Sorry, just had a question about the programming coming up. So I'm just pulling that up. Alrighty. Sorry, it's just taking a second. My computer isn't getting old. Okay. Sorry, give me 1 second, everybody. Things are slow. But yeah, there's so many new microbrews. They come and go like crazy. It's really interesting. Okay, what do we got coming up? I'm going to do more promotions across social media coming up. I just ran out of time yesterday. So tonight, obviously, we have Mark Milner coming on at 7. So I'm going to sign off shortly just so I can save my voice. Even though he's going to be talking way more than me. That's the way it should be. So I'm really looking forward to that. Mark Milner is amazing. Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I saw the video of them putting it back. Was that you, Pete? I saw a bunch. And I'm really excited to go see it when I come back to London at the end of the month. And then we have Caroline Demar's doing French Canadian units of Normandy infantry. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm a Londoner by birth and raising, and went to Western. James Jeffries. Oh, sorry, that's on the 11th at 2 o'clock. 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, these are all Eastern times. We're having James Jeffries to talk about Bomber Command and its role in Overlord, which is cool because it's talked about, but it's nice to hyper focus and see what that means, because it's really misunderstood. There's the whole like the videos, like I put one up a couple days ago, which is a really quick one about the bombing of the beach defenses, and lots of misunderstandings and what actually makes an impact on combat. Like, because of course the guy on the ground who's fighting a bunker is going to be pissed it's not taken out by a Lancaster or something. But if you're, who's not the ability to talk after a while, interdiction of everything going on behind the lines, that has a major impact, right? If they can't get to the front line, they can't fight. If they can't get bullets, they can't fight. Well, they're going to come at you with a knife when you have a 25-pounder. Like, that's just not going to go well, right? So those make big impacts. So I'm excited to talk about that. On the 17th at 1:30, Mark Zilke is going to be back, which again, I'm very excited for because he's amazing speaker and historian, but he's also going to be talking about Operation Totalize and Tractable. So I'm excited to talk about that because I like learning about those as much as possible, particularly more now Tractable because of what its role was in bringing Normandy to an end, right? And the organization and the learning and everything that went into that. And even I give Simmons his due for a lot of things connected to Totalize and Tractable. I mean, there's still mistakes, but they're learning and they're doing a good job. They are brushing that 12th SS resistance aside, no matter how fanatical it is. They are steamrolling them at that point, and that's amazing, and we don't talk about that. And Alex, who was there earlier, is going to be talking about Mike Red on the 21st at 7. And then I'm going to be doing my first live stream not from my house in Ottawa. I'll be in the London area at the time. I'm going to have Rich Fisher back on the channel. He was on talking about Canlone and the Vickers more generally a while ago. He's going to be talking about the British Canadian machine gun battalions in Normandy. So the Canadians, like the Cameron Highlanders, those guys from Ottawa. So that's cool. And they play an important role, and they're often forgotten because they're so broken up and they don't have a collective narrative to tell, right? And then the last one I have scheduled is on the 28th at 2 o'clock with Mike Bechtold and on Worthington Force. So that's going to be a good one too. No, London, Ontario, Rob. London, Ontario, Southern Ontario, Southwestern Ontario, between Toronto and Detroit. And so there might be some other ones. Some other people might reach out if they want to come on. I keep asking people if they want. It's just a few people I've never heard back from. So it is what it is. But those are the ones that are on schedule. So that's what awaits for the rest of the month. So hopefully some of those can do a good number and raising some numbers on the channel, getting more attention, and just having some really cool topics talked about. That some are talked about quite a lot. Some are not. I think London, Ontario is getting mad. I don't know if I should be offended. I think we've been mad, Pete. Little London. London 2, the Tree Edition. So that's what we got coming up. Great to meet you. If there's more coming, I'll let you know. I gotta still talk to a few people about some ideas we had. Just nothing that's settled or finalized. I'm hoping to do a few more because I have the time now, so I may as well, while I can, keep the theme going because I think it's a good one to coalesce around and talk about some topics that have been talked to death, like we did with the other day with Kurt Meyer, Bruce McDonald, all that fun stuff with Taylor, bringing a new perspective to a talked about topic, well-trodden path kind of thing. Oh, yes, smiley face. Yes, I've been to your London, Rob, many times. And you guys got your own set of problems. Let's leave it at that. Why does everything cost so much? At least it's cheaper, Pete. I can vouch for that. There's a bit of meh. Well, I don't live there anymore. So anyway. Yeah, so that's cool. So that's what we got coming up. I'll be sure to get most of those up. Just hammering out some details on a few of them. So yeah, there's that coming up. So after today, I'll be a bit of a break for the rest of the week. When is the 11th anyway? I don't know. The 11th is Saturday. Oh, awesome. So we'll have more on the weekend. So that's cool. After tonight. So yeah, so that's what's coming up. I already talked about, what I'm not sure what the future holds for the channel as of the end of this month. I think that'll be a good time to sit back and think. But there's been some ideas that have been tossed around, with a few people about doing some stuff in the future, particularly in July. I'm not going to say what because I don't know if it'll ever happen. But there may be something coming that I think is going to be a really cool idea if we can get it hammered out and I can keep going. So yeah, I think that's an important way of thinking about it. There could be some good stuff. So maybe that'll keep me a little more motivated and keep pushing on this stuff, because I think there's lots of good ways to tell some stories that we have told in ways, but not in the way that I do things. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but just no one's doing this. No one's taken this kind of Canadian history and sort of picked it up and is running with it in this kind of way that I am all the time, right? You have organizations that do Canadian history, not detracting from them. They may be more narrowly focused, though, or doing it in a different way. The digital offerings are limited. Some of them think they're doing a great job, and I'm not saying who. I won't answer any questions about that because I don't want to, for all kinds of reasons. They think they're doing a good job, and they're not. They're just not. They're not reaching audiences the way they could be. Like, they could be doing amazing work and they just think everything is fine, and it's not fine. But they don't listen because dinosaurs take a long time to hear and to move, unfortunately. Anyway, so one of the few things, I'm one of the few people doing this and doing it every day. So, oh yeah, you work in the hospital, right, Pete? So you get those long, fun shifts. Well, it'll be available as soon as it's done. It'll be able to watch probably after you get some sleep after working a 12-hour shift. So you'll be able to check it out after. If you have any questions for Mark Milner, ask him now, and I can bring them forward for you. Because since you've showed up so much recently, I mean, you're one of the few people watching live for the Navy Memorial, so that was awesome. So I can give you a little special privilege there. If you want to ask some questions now, I'll take them down, and then I can ask them for you, because I don't know how long that one's going to go, as long as Mark will talk. He's a talker in a good way. Man, that man tells stories like none other, and he's so good at it. And like, I did a battlefield tour with him, and it's like, it was a privilege to be able to sit there and listen. He wanted me to drive the van because I was the only one old enough to fit under the insurance, but I couldn't drive stick. I still can't. So unfortunately, he didn't just get to be the storyteller. He had to drive, because if I had drove, I probably would have killed us all or destroyed the car. So that's bad. But anyway, yeah, he's a storyteller. But I know where he's going to go with some of these. Like, some of it I already know. Well, I have the book right here, but it's never very that much far from my side. Stopping the Panzers is a great book if you don't know it. I've talked about it a lot. There, well, that's flat. Like, this book is amazing. Like, this will, if you don't know this book and you've just been like taking in the popular stuff your entire life. Geez, why can't I get this straight? You let me drive the BMW. You guys had a BMW? Was that a van? We had some crap van that we destroyed, and sort of. The thing was very muddy, and someone kicked it. Apparently, we pissed somebody off in D up, and they kicked the car and left a huge dent in it. The next morning, we go, I was like, "Did you do that?" I'm like, "I don't think we did that." So that was funny. Anyway, sorry. Stopping the Panzers. Great book. If you don't know it, don't be put off that it's an academic press, because it is an academic press. It's an academic book, but it's not. It is and it isn't. He's like Tim Cook. You're going to learn a ton of stuff, and it's going to be academically sound and historically sound, but damn, he can tell a story. And this one's chock full of them. Like Amanda, who's back, because that's how long we've been going. Yeah, it was vandalized road trip, so we had 2 cars and a van. Oh, see, the vandalism's like a European thing. If they see a van, they attack it. I'm just joking. Don't be mad. We vandalize cars too. Anyway, yeah, so he talks about all kinds of stories. His dad is an important part of how he, frames the discussion, because his dad was a gunner, part of the 13th Fields, 13th Battery. God, I can't remember. Regiment. God, my brain's starting to go to mush. Oh yeah, you're in London, Pete. I have, if you're okay with it, if you can buy through one of my links in one of the older videos, that would help me out a lot because I get a little tiny commission for it. If you buy through chapters, if you click on the link, I can, in one of the older videos, it should be there. I also did a live stream on my top 5 Normandy books, and this is definitely probably number 1. I didn't rank them, but I am now. So you can get it through there. If you could, that would help me out, because sales, I get a tiny bit, but anything's better than nothing. So yeah, it's available from chapters. I think they'll deliver. I think I checked yesterday because I put it on one of the videos. If you check some of the videos, because you said you're going through them, so there's links to Stopping the Panzers and most of the Normandy videos. Anyway, so he tells all kinds of stories. One's connected to the North Shore because he's a New Brunswicker. One's to his dad. All that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of crazy stories in there within this larger narrative argument that Canada's role in Normandy. Oh wow, yeah, that would have been awesome to read it before. I've read it like 4 times. I reviewed it for Canadian Military History too, way back when. Feels like another lifetime ago. Anyway, yeah, around this idea that the 3rd Canadian Division is given the role of stopping the Panzers, right? And if any of you have been there, it's perfect tank country. That was the idea, right? That the Germans are going to counterattack with their armor through these areas around the Mew River Valley, and that's exactly what they do. 21st Panzer comes up there the first day and withdraws because they're outnumbered, but then the 12th SS comes on the scene, and then everything kind of goes to hell from there. But they did blunt the attacks. They were given so much more artillery, and that's one of the arguments and why his connection to his father, who was a gunner again, is really important to this story and understanding it and all of that. But also I think because I've talked to him a bunch of times since then, obviously, and he's done other presentations, and I've met him at conferences numerous times. He's working on how the story of D-Day was literally even told right off the hop. Like how that was done. Sorry, one second. Like what that meant, like who got the story back first, who put the antenna up to get the story out. Like he is intense with this stuff, and it's awesome. I hope he talks about it because he's retired, so hopefully he's enjoying that retired life. But I do want him to get more out just because he does such good work. Like he's known as a naval historian, but he is more than that, like so much more, and it's amazing. Well, he helped Amanda with hers, and hers was not a Navy topic in the slightest. Also another good book that we talked about on the channel. So that's a really good book. So tonight's going to be exciting to talk about parts of that because the arguments come from part of that. Yeah. I don't know if that's what he told me last, but and we were talking about it when he did the Laurier last year when they did that speaker series, because we were just chatting before because they had me on just to kind of ask some questions, and so we're chatting about that and understanding like how the narrative is formed and who does it and all of that stuff. And also the deception parts of this is an important part of the book that gets a mention that doesn't get talked about ever, right? This whole idea of, well, it's that Patton's army, right? That's going to land at Calais. The Canadians have a role in this, and he's be sure to talk about that tonight because he literally told me to put that in the title about the deception, right? The 3 things, that's one of them, and that's the one he focuses on with Fortitude South, right? That operation to confuse the Germans, thinking it's coming at the Pas de Calais, not Normandy, that's just a feint to distract, and it works amazingly well. Like again, watched Mincemeat the other night, and they said, "Oh, it's the best deception," blah blah blah, and I'm like, Fortitude is garbage. Like Fortitude worked. Yeah, Mincemeat worked too, but was it not going to work? You know, like Sicily was probably going to go that way no matter what. They throw another division on there or not, I don't think it would have made a difference. Anyway, that's a whole other side. But yeah, so that's really, really exciting. And so hopefully we can get him to talk about if he's got his next project lined up or if he's just been too busy fishing. Because again, he deserves it because he's been at this for, oh geez, I think he told us he joined DHH in the 70s. 80s maybe. It's a long time. He's been doing this a long time and doing it a long time. He's one of the giants in the field, and I still don't think we us as Canadians in the field recognize what we have with someone like Mark Milner. Like he's on the Terry Kopp top level, Granstein top level here, and I just don't think we realize that and don't give him the due that he deserves. Anyway, I'll stop fanboying about that, but yeah, so that's exciting. So tonight will be good. and that's at 7 o'clock. So unless anyone has any other burning questions, I think it's probably a good time to sign off before I lose my ability to talk. Unless someone wants to hear anything else, I'll give it a few minutes again like I did before. Yeah, so that's cool. So again, if you can become a patron, please do. Really helpful. I've already hit 2. Yeah, it's time for a rest, just like the song. Or home for a rest. Close enough. I'm already home. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I heard him say that too, actually. When I asked him what he was going to do when he retires, he told me he was going to be a historian again. Yeah, because he was chairs of departments, all that crap, all the paperwork, and now he can just be a historian and no grading, which is tiresome in my experience. It takes a number out of you. So yeah, it's cool that he can hopefully focus and get some more stuff out. It's not like he doesn't have a ton of stuff, but more because we're greedy that way, right? We always want more. We always want the top to do more, so we can have more to read about and discuss and talk, and hopefully not fight over, but discuss in a lively way, which I'm sure we all love. Anyway, yeah, so I think I'm going to sign off now just to give my vocal cords a rest for tonight and get offline for a little bit. See how some things are going to go on online with the D-Day stuff. Hopefully no big surprises are waiting for me from someone. But so yeah, so thanks. Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your kind comments. It does help. It's a boost. It's nice to have support. And I know you guys are behind me. So that's great to have and to know that it's out there and that there's people that want this stuff. So yeah, so thanks again, everyone. Yeah, so the link to the Patreon's down below. All the books are elsewhere linked. I think, I linked Mark's book to be bought, if you can, through my link in the show for tonight, because his stuff is great and it's going to be part of this. And I think everyone who's interested in this stuff should not only read the book, but own the thing. Like it's so good that it's like, I use it as a reference book too, because it's just that good. It just covers so much. Anyway, yeah. So thanks everyone. Again, thanks for the support. Those of you who are patrons, those of you who show up for every live stream and every little thing I'm doing. It's amazing. And it means the world to me because I get to do what I love to do, which is history and to talk history with people. So again, I can't thank you all enough. So I know some of you Europeans will be heading to bed soon because it's probably getting pretty late, and 7 o'clock our time will be pretty late over there. But everybody else, I hope we get to see you tonight and bring comments, questions, and it's going to be a good one. So hopefully I can see a good chunk of you there. So I'll see everybody later. Thanks again. Bye.